Good evening. I'd like to call to order the monthly meeting for March 3rd of the Planning Board. My name is Hazel Nurse. I am the chairman of the board. To my far left is Jenny Gingrich, our town planner. Then Christina Kelleher, John Pizzoni, Michael Silverberg, and John Gelsich will be joining us later. He has a business conflict. To my far right is Dirk Bogart, who is our admin. I'm glad to see you here tonight, and remember this meeting is being recorded by Westborough TV. Please be aware that all supporting materials have been provided to the members of this body and are available on the town website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless note otherwise. Some of the ground rules are that I, as the chairman, will introduce the speaker on the agenda. After they've concluded their remarks, the chair will go down the line of our members, inviting each name to provide comments or questions. Remember to speak clearly. This includes any applicants or people that wish to make comments, as most minutes are being taken. Sometimes it's difficult to understand people's names. Please be aware that when we have public comment, that try not to repeat what things have already been said or information which you've already received, which are of record. And I will ask that all comments be confined to 2 minutes. And I guess we're ready to start. The first order of business is an application for 165 Flanders Road. This project has been before us for quite a long time now, but there have been a number of problems with it. They've been working on the proposed site plan, and they've asked for an adjournment till April 1st, 2025. Jenny, do you have any comments to bring us up to date on this?
Yes, so the applicant was originally going to submit a request for withdrawal and reapply for a later meeting. They've been working on some revised plans with the Conservation Commission and Engineering Department, and we also need to complete a new peer review, so we've also had to ask for additional funds to complete that. But the reason that they would need to withdraw is because we're running up against a quorum issue, because it's been over 2 years since this board originally opened the hearing. They are close to running out of members that could be on the hearing, because you need at least 3. So that's the reason that they would have to withdraw and then reapply. It will also, if they do that, it will also be up to the board on whether to waive any new fees that would go along with that application. So it's just something to think about for when they come on April 1st to request that withdrawal.
Just for the public's information, this is a new building to be put up at the Cumberland Farms headquarters down on Flanders Road. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this? Christina?
No, for me.
John? Michael?
If they did withdraw and reapply, have the application fees changed? And if they have, I would recommend that they pay at least the difference between the application fee from
I would
2+ years ago and
Right.
today.
I don't believe they have, but I can double check that.
I think it's something we were looking into. I don't know whether anything you've done about it, but there have been some comments recently about the fact that perhaps our fees are not in line with other towns and that they should be increased. So, but I don't think that's actually come to pass yet.
No, I'll actually be talking to the board about that in April, about our fees. Yep.
Right. Could I have a motion then to continue the matter at 165 Flanders Road until April 1st, 2025?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? That matter will come to our agenda again on April 1st. Second matter on our agenda is a minor modification to a definitive subdivision approval for Silver Hollow. Is there anyone here for that matter? You're a resident, I gather? Okay, I'm looking for an applicant.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. But I will take questions later.
Thank you. All right. Hello.
Evening.
Good evening. Could you introduce yourselves for the record?
Good evening. Barry Atchison with WDA Design Group. Steve Rosenfield with the developer. Wanted to see if we sent a memo over with a quick summary of the development and what we're asking for tonight. Has everybody seen that in general? There's
Perhaps you could just describe the development for the
Yep.
audience we have here tonight and the TV so that people will know what we're talking about.
Sure. But I'm developer of Silver Hollow Estates. I can give you a quick update, and then we can move into why we're here. First, I'd just like to say that all 26 houses have been fully constructed. They're sold and occupied now. So it's been quite a while since, never been able to say that, but we're pleased that we've reached this stage.
Could you just describe for the audience where Silver Hollow is? Some people may not know.
Off of Mount Pleasant Street. Okay. We have been working, continue to be working diligently with all members of the staff and town officials. There are only a few, what we would consider a few punch list items left before we apply for road acceptance later this summer for a vote, hopefully the end of this year. We have responded consistently and promptly to concerns from neighbors and abutters who have raised various issues over the course of the 4.5 years since I've been involved. And we think that has been going pretty well. And the transfer of the homeowners association to the residents is ready to be scheduled as soon as we know we have a line of sight into when road acceptance will be applied for or be considered. So we're waiting for that. But the homeowners association has been operating for 3.5 years, and it's now fully, all the residents, 26 homes, are all entitled to be members of the homeowners association, which will transfer upon election. But we're ready to do that when we have line of sight. We're down to what I'm told is, I don't know if de minimis is really the right word, but just the last things that we have to do for the subdivision. We're looking forward to completing those and proposing that the town take over the road. Hopefully, over this last period of time, some of you have gotten to know me. We're trying to do the best we can and get things done in a prompt and professional way. And this could be the last ask that we have to modify the original plans to make sure that we're delivering the subdivision the way it should be delivered in the way the town wants it. So I just wanted to give an update on the scope of the project. I'll turn it over to Barry, who has more of the technical details.
Okay.
Any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as Steve mentioned, there's a few items in here that are slightly modified from the original definitive plan that was issued somewhere in the tune of 2019. And we'll start right at the start of this, which is the trees, since you have that pulled up. In the definitive plan, in the landscaping plan, there was the table that's up on the top right-hand corner. It lists species and quantities of trees that were supposed to be installed. And of that, there's about 202 trees and shrubs that were proposed to be installed. Going over a few columns after the word proposed, it's a column that says installed quantity, and I think I can. So this is what was in the plan originally. This is what has been installed and will be installed. There's a few that remain since we just finished up the construction going into the winter and out of the growing season. We couldn't finish up planting some of them. So there's 124 trees that are have been planted. I think that leave about 75, 76 trees that are remaining to be installed. Can you move that all the way out to the whole plan? And I believe Steve has come to you in the past and asked for some relief on some trees that were on this side of the development. Through some paperwork and so forth, we've come to find out that there was trees that were installed at the very beginning. And then there's a row of arborvitaes up here that I think everybody thought there was about 44. It's actually 61 trees that were proposed in that vicinity. It's already an extremely dense location, so we're looking to continue relief on that. Overall, like I said, there's 202 trees, 124 have been planted. We like to plant the remaining portion of those. Just want to get some idea from you folks of where. I've identified on here where some trees that just can't go in because of ledge, others that are were proposed that due to utilities and being the appropriate distance off of utilities, I can't plant or relocate them over to those locations. I've identified some over in here that were at the base of the detention pond that I believe the original intention was to screen some of the development, but it's also extremely densely populated as shown up in this picture up here, and they wouldn't really block much of the development. For that, there's probably a few other locations that we could relocate the trees, but just wanted to get some of your opinion on that. Is there anything on that, Steve?
I would just summarize it saying we see 34 trees left to decide where to plant or not to plant. They're not in any place. There's some limitations because, well, it's 40 acres, 30 of it or 30 plus of it is open space. So the amount of actual places to, between the roads and the properties is quite limited.
Vegetated open space.
Vegetated open space, thank you. So we're agreeable to plant more trees. The question was where, and we come here basically asking, not kind of asking you to tell us where to put them in the development, but if we come back with a plan and say we can find a few here and a few there, or whatever it is, would that be sufficient? Because we really want to plant them as early as possible. The landscaper, Burrow Brothers, just spoke with, is ready to go mid-April. We have these other trees coming in, so we're getting into a period of time where they do the spring cleanup. They'll remove the silt fences. They want to plant the whole trees, and I'd really like to try to get this one contractor to do as much as everything as we possibly can, and start early and finish soon.
Yeah, you did consult the tree warden on this, I understand.
We've been into, well.
We have and we will, once we locate where some more trees can go, we'll be staking them out and then discussing with him the appropriate species and location if he has approval on that.
Right. Just to cut to the chase, I think we think we can plant some screening trees by the basins because that's not anybody's personal property. We can stick trees in places that you could argue are needed or not. That's really the question. Do we just plant trees because we have a definitive plan from 2019 saying this is how many trees, or should we just do what's best for the neighborhood? And that's really the question. So we can find a few places. We just want to know if we can pick them, we share the plans with the town, they'll be good to go, so we know whether we have to plant them or not.
I mean, I myself, I guess, would like a little more information from having you share it with the tree warden at this point, because I think, that's the reason we have a tree warden in town, is to help with the planting of trees and appropriate places for them to go. I mean, I'm not an authority on where the trees should go, and I would be more likely to lean on information from town employees as to what might be the better solutions or places that those could go. And my general feeling about it. Christina?
Just because it was before my time, how did we land on the 202?
Before our time.
Before our time
Real
too,
answer.
but I can surmise it was based on the number of trees that needed to go along the road, and then some initial people that had come to the meeting and said they wanted some screening or something of that sort, which
It
is
had a
where
lot to do with screening. I think that was
Okay.
the original thing. And then it was a matter of the trees on the streets of the development that we were looking to make this more like a friendly community, and not that it's not friendly, but it would be more an
Sure,
attractive
yeah,
community.
feel more
The more
established,
trees
yeah.
you can put, the better off you
Yeah.
are on a community.
So, Chris, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There was a landscape plan submitted, and that was probably reviewed either by our engineering department or a peer review, I don't remember which. And that's how, the applicant agreed to plant those trees. And
Okay.
it was probably at the recommendation of either our engineering department or the peer reviewer, or might have just been submitted by them and signed
Sure,
off.
estimates based on the.
Yeah, it was
site.
submitted
Okay.
as part of the site plan review, so
Okay.
that we did see it
I
at that
don't
point.
remember if we asked for more trees
I think
from
we
the
did.
original plan, or if that was.
Okay,
yeah.
that's
I think we
helpful.
did.
I think
Oh, you
we did, yeah.
Okay.
We did ask for more, because I was concerned that I felt it was important to have as many trees along the roadway as
Sure.
along the roadways as possible.
No, that makes sense. And this development was started in 2019? Is that correct? Or
Construction.
ish? Constructed, I'm sorry, yes.
Well, house construction started in mid.
clearing started in 2019 and then moved into houses and
Okay.
roadway, and
And was it trees prior?
yes.
Okay. Okay,
I've also been told it was a rock quarry.
okay.
Yeah, it was.
It was?
Okay, I think those are my only questions.
John, have you got
Thank
any
you.
questions, comments?
No.
Mark?
I just agreed with your comments about the tree warden's advice on this. It's,
Can I make one more clarifying point, just to, I think, there's 61 or so trees across the street from Mount Pleasant Street. It's
Just
across
in
the
this
road.
location.
Those, that were in the original plan, so we
Well, we
just.
gave you relief on
And you
that.
gave us relief from that,
Yeah.
and I think thank you. And what I guess I'm saying is, did that mean we had to put 61 back into the inside of the community?
Well, not necessarily. It depends on what the tree warden's idea of, or looking at it. If it doesn't, if we looked at the original plan that you presented to us, I think we did ask for more trees on the streets themselves, and you seem to have come up with those kind of things. Just because there were 61 across, it may not be appropriate to put 61 more on the particular property itself. It depends on the topography and what the subdivision looks like, I think.
Thank you. Well, that's the essence of why we're looking for more direction, so we're happy to follow whatever direction we get, but if we're trying to throw trees in places, it's good to plant trees. But.
Yeah, one more thought. Sorry, Mark, one more thought. If the board decided that roughly 200 trees were necessary, and if this was tree, I wonder, and if you're willing to plant more trees, I wonder if we look at, or if we'd be willing to come to some sort of agreement for other places in town that might need those 30 trees, since there were more taken down here.
Well, we're just looking at a de minimis change on this particular subdivision. I think to add an additional condition on that
Fair,
does
sure.
not seem to be
That's fair.
happening with anything. Mark, you got
Yeah,
a,
so I think at some point, I mean, this was approved in 2018, so it was a long time ago that we had a butter notice and a butter input on removal of trees, where the trees should be. Now the board's being asked to do a de minimis change without a butter notification, right? So we have to be very careful that we're honoring the initial intent of the decision. And I don't want to just grant a de minimis change if I feel like there's too many trees not being done, that the abutters might be upset that we didn't require it. Does that make sense?
It does, yep.
well, I think that's the reason we would look to perhaps adjourn this until we had an opinion from the tree warden on this, because he will certainly look at that kind
Yeah,
of,
absolutely. Sure.
yeah.
Are you talking more about screening, though, with the abutters? And if that's the case, what does the tree warden have to do with
Well,
that?
I think for screening, that was one of the things we had resolved, I think, when we did this original subdivision. To ask, I don't know, John, I mean, it's a question as to whether there's sufficient screening. I don't know. We've not had any complaints from abutters at this point. It will become a public comment. I mean, it is public information now for the de minimis change. Do you feel we need to hold a public hearing on this to notify all the abutters on it?
I don't.
Well,
Mark?
I don't feel that now, but I do agree we need to talk to the tree warden. I don't think it was just screening. I think that the abutters, for example, a lot of them didn't want sidewalks on Mount Pleasant because it's a scenic country road, and they just wanted to make sure that scenic country nature was preserved once this subdivision was built. So if the tree warden and Jenny and the rest of town staff recommend to the board that, that intent again was preserved, then, I don't think we need to require any more trees. But if they feel like there's something still missing there, then, that's when we'll discuss it.
So it's safe to say they could do their best of putting together a plan showing where they could fit whatever number of remaining trees you could, and we can review it.
Yeah, with town staff opinion on it, and yeah, come through. Jenny?
I just wanted to note that there are some abutters here that I think they would like to comment as well when we're done discussing this. And then there's a second half to this to also discuss the trail system.
Yeah, I thought maybe we'd go ahead and finish with this, then discuss the trails, and then ask for public comment, so that because I don't know whether the people that are here want to discuss the trails or the trees or both.
Okay.
So I was going to move forward on that. All right, if you'd like to make your presentation on the trails now.
Sure. Similar to the trees, the existing site plan on this already had contained walking trails that folks went through. They made walking trails around. They were existing. A few of them had gone through the wetland. There actually was a car path that came out, and in this vicinity there was a few abandoned cars. So there was a wide enough path to get down there. Unfortunately, it did go through the wetland, and that was constructed well before us in the early 40s or somewhere around in there. Per this development and their approved definitive plan, we were trying to connect up the existing walkways to the development, so we get some walking paths. And as such, it left us in some of the resource or boundaries of the resource, and there was one that actually went through. and caused some concern with the Conservation Commission. So we filed a notice of intent with that, and we discussed this plan with them to include some additional signage, some blazings to identify the trails, and modify a few of the trails, such there's one that was going out here that we decided we should not go through there because it abuts and walking in front of a bunch of neighbors and so forth. And the conservation one we decided to, and were recommended to remove from this. In our opinion, the modifications that we did make, as shown in this plan, still provides the intent of the walking paths for the residents and meets the intent of the definitive plan and provides the walk-in paths. So what we're looking for is you guys to acknowledge it and I guess in sorts give your blessing to that so that we can also go back to the Conservation Commission and get their final okay, that you guys agree with it. In addition, this plan also identifies some of the signage that has been recommended, protection so homeowners don't throw debris and so forth into the open space, as well as that it's an actual wetland resource area and just identifies it as that, as well as some markings for where the trails will be so they can be maintained and over its life. That kind of segues into the third topic of our discussion, which is ownership of the open space and who's going to be controlling that operation and maintenance of it. It will be the HOA, the development, the owner, through some discussions with the boards, we've tightened up some of the deed language to give them control and how to manage and operate and provide some fees or what am I trying to, penalties for doing
Enforcement
such.
mechanisms.
Enforcement action is what I'm looking for, thank you.
I'll just jump in. The two things in the document we sent to you was an amendment, a proposed amendment to the HOA trust that adds more specificity about the rules and regulations around open spaces. So we're more specifically aligned with the desires of the town of, what is, how it should be treated. And then we also added enforcement language for infractions so that, again, it was clear in the trust agreement, which wasn't originally in the first one we did, about what happens if there's a violation. So we, what I learned was there are holes in these things, and the town was was generally interested in not just us saying we're aligned with the good governance of the property, but basically what's the mechanism for enforcement. So we've put this into this new document that we can amend. And we're in the sole control of the homeowners
Have you
association.
run this by the Conservation Commission?
Sorry.
Have you run this by the Conservation Commission?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And Jenny. Yes.
So just the only change is over by this open space parcel 2, that you're bringing it closer to the community and away from, I guess, the neighbor.
There's a couple, it was a trail that went down here. There was a trail that went through here that we're eliminating, and there was a trail that cut through this area.
Yeah, so out of the wetlands and away from.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's
Yes.
pretty.
Fundamentally,
Yeah.
it's like, why are we doing this?
Yeah, makes all the sense.
It makes sense to me. Yeah. Christina, have you got any comments?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Mark?
Yeah, is there language in either that revised document or any of the original documents that preserves public access to these trails, or is that?
I want to be careful, I don't know, but there is public access. There's always been public access. You're asking me about public access to the trails?
Right, but if the HOA is retaining ownership, are they going to have the authority to just close those trails?
No. No, because it's subject to the policies of of Westborough. So ultimately, everything the homeowners association can do is controlled by
Right. They
ComCon and
can
you
shut
guys.
the
We're
trails
just
down.
aligned with whatever your policies are.
What if they don't want it?
Well, that's
Right.
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Right, like the intent of the open space subdivision was to preserve open space and to create recreational opportunities, not just for these 26 homes, but for the entire neighborhood and town. And I just want to make sure that, there's a balance between a trail in somebody's backyard and privacy, and yet, what's the point of constructing the trail if only 26 homes can use it? If they say, no, we'll maintain it, but we're going to prohibit access to the public? I just want to make sure that that's not going to happen. I mean, that's not the intent of the open space bylaw.
I mean, I'm happy to, let me research that, and I just can't imagine that that it's in, the document isn't that complex. I'll come back to you with that to make sure I give you the correct
Yeah, I
answer.
mean, I don't think that was intentionally omitted by the applicant. I'm just wondering where that's preserved, because I don't see it in this revised.
Because this is an addendum, but
Okay.
I'll look at the master
Yeah,
document.
okay.
We're going to get.
It's a long time ago, so there's probably some paperwork
I've seen
somewhere.
it. But yes,
that
let me
establishes-
make sure.
And probably in the original approvals.
Yeah, I'll absolutely,
Right.
and, yeah.
Are there any other questions from the board on this? Any of these three matters? Jenny, are there any comments you wish to make?
I don't have any additional comments right now.
I believe we have a couple of homeowners here. Make a comment on this. Yes, sir, if you could come to the mic and.
Should I
Yes,
come here?
and-
Okay, awesome.
And state your name clearly.
Hi, my name is Naitik Shah, and I'm the resident at Silver Hollow. I live in 1 Blue Heron Court, and I'm here representing the 26 homes. They have asked me to come. So so far everything's going great. We're waiting for the town to take over the neighborhood. So, thank you, Steve. Thanks to your team for, speeding things up here. And thanks to the town for, accommodating some of our concerns and plus making it a nice neighborhood for us to live in. Just a couple of things that our neighbors, that my residents have pointed out that we wanted to also bring it to this forum here. Should we go to the landscape one before, or we want to do the trail first?
We can go to the landscape. You
Okay,
wanna
thank you.
Bring that up.
So coming here to the landscape, I know we have over 200 trees that are supposed to be planted. I know there are challenges with the ledge area, especially between lot 23 and 24. And the concern here is there are rotten trees on that ledge. There are weeds and all. So if we cannot plant trees, how can we eliminate what is existing over there? Because it's a safety hazard for kids playing in their yards, There could be trees falling down, or there are massive amount of weeds, and it just spoils the look of the neighborhood, and plus those are spreading in the yards. So that is one major concern here, because even though you cannot plant trees, but there are already things that is existing over there, which is rotten.
All right.
So that's what.
Can someone point out on the map here what area particularly he's talking about?
It's a common space between lot 23 and 24.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
giant,
Knob of
Giant
ledge.
boulder, yeah.
it's a giant, massive piece of ledge at that intersection right there. And I think there are trees.
There are trees which are rotting. I mean,
But not out of the ledge.
I don't know if the tree warden from the town has taken a look at that, but if they do, if they haven't, I would urge them to take a look at it because it's a mess.
It's somewhere between a cleanup, as it was expressed to me, it needed to be cleaned up. So, which I said sure, but I don't know if it's more than that, but it might be. We're happy to have the tree warden look at it.
And it sounds like getting the tree warden out there, take a look at it is probably the thing to do at this point.
No, I appreciate that. The other thing is in regards to some of the lots, in the original plan and the landscape plan, there were some retaining walls and things like that, which again, residents have pointed out is a major safety risk. They have now been removed, and as a result of which, their backyard is like a pit. I know some of the town inspectors have seen that, and we were told that something could be done, and we're kind of trying to raise that concern here again because it's again a safety risk for the kids and the residents living in those lots, especially lot 9. Again, I would urge the town to take a look at that lot again, the backyard especially.
I would make a comment about that.
Yeah.
The
Could you
original.
speak into the
Oh, sorry.
microphone?
Sure.
Yeah.
The original plans had different size houses, and it was envisioned with retaining walls in certain areas. Over the course of planning and construction, it was determined that landscaping and, earth moving was just as effective as putting in decorative retaining walls. So the town approved the plans. It met all the drainage and other
Slope requirements.
So that's what we built, and that is what's there. So in terms of in terms of the drainage and the proper functioning of all the lots, we believe we've met all the requirements. Homeowners are also welcome to put in decorative walls as long as they meet the city, the town's codes. Some people have, some people haven't. So it's tight. There is, especially lot 9. I mean,
And the lot 9, the challenge is the proximity to the wetlands. And that's why you have to go through, if the wall is not there, there's no erosion control. And especially with the town being so sensitive about the wetlands, we just don't know why nothing has been done, or at the time of approval or anything. So it's apart from the wetland proximity, the erosion control methods not followed, plus it's a huge safety risk because it's a pit. I don't know if I know Jennifer has seen that, and it's a huge safety risk for kids playing in the backyard. There's barely any backyard because of it.
So the Conservation Board Conservation Officer has looked at it,
Has taken a look at it.
and did she make comments about it?
We spoke verbally when she was inspecting, and we just told her that it's a safety hazard, when she had come before the closing of lot 9.
Jenny, were you aware of this at all?
So each lot, when they come in for a building permit, and then also when they come in for an as-built, they're reviewed by engineering as well to make sure they comply with everything. So I don't know when this lot went through that process, but it would have been approved under engineering. So that's really all I can.
And Lot 9 also had its own independent conditions from Concom that has been cleared, and they've received their certificate of compliance.
I just want you guys to revisit it again, and if you tell us that there is no safety risk, there is no erosion control, we're okay with it. Just take a look at it.
All right, well, I'm sure we can arrange for that.
All right, awesome. Thank you. The other thing is lot 10, that is my lot, is...
Excuse me, just,
Oh, sorry.
can I just ask a question? So is it just a wetland behind there? Is it a swamp? What?
It's an isolated wetland. that
And right
is,
now, it just slopes down. So if you were to build a retaining wall, probably
it would be a very tall retaining wall.
retaining wall that would just be a straight drop down instead of a gradual drop down.
Correct.
Okay. Which I would think would be
Less dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the gradual drop going to the wetlands would be more or less dangerous than, call it a 6, 7, 8 foot retaining wall.
I'm with you. If it's a gradual slope, it's fine. Those residents will get a bigger backyard to, work around with. But right now, it's not gradual. It's a steep drop. I mean,
Mark?
Yeah, so if the plans were approved and built to the standards of the town's, bylaws as far as slope and engineering's recommendations, it may seem steep, but as long as it's built to prevent erosion control, the buyer of that lot had access to those plans and should have either, I mean, they may want to put up a fence to prevent accidental, but I don't necessarily know that that's the developers.
so initially, a different, like Steve said, different plans were shared, and then these plans got revised later on after the PNS was signed.
Okay.
That's the thing. That's
Yeah, well,
what happened after
normally,
2018, 2019, and then the revisions happened, with the
Right.
plans.
Well, normally they do get revised when you start the building, because often there's a change in conditions.
Yeah, but that's.
So I think that makes a difference there. But I mean, I think perhaps if you wish, you can certainly call the engineering department yourself and ask them to come out, or conservation, just to make the homeowner feel better about why the property is sloped the way it is in order to maintain erosion control.
Sure, I mean,
So I would suggest maybe you give engineering a call on this, or conservation, and have them come out and look at it.
Sure.
And explain what your thoughts are, and get some idea about why it is sloped the way it is.
Sure, so we'll touch base with them, so until then, let's keep it as a concern, and let's get engineering, explain the resident as to why this is and what safety measures could be taken potentially, because the whole thing is there is a wetland, and then for that wetland, for any safety measures, the resident has to go through a whole hoop of approvals, which are again not cheap, I put it as we have to pay WDA for the same plans and everything. It just keeps adding up.
Yeah, well,
The cost, yeah. It's-
Okay, well, this is the kind of thing you can bring to the
Exactly.
town departments about, to
Yeah,
talk to. And I
for
would
sure,
suggest
because
that you
that's
do
why
that.
it's just difficult for some of
Yeah.
the residents to, move forward with doing something for safety as well, It's just the whole process and the expense behind it,
All right, well, I suggest that would be your next step. Have you got any other things to raise?
The other thing is Lot 10, which is my lot, is it's a year and a half, and the certificate of compliance hasn't been granted yet because of the grading problem between Lot 9 and Lot 10. And I've just not been able to do anything in my backyard for the past 18 months. So I'm just trying to figure out what is the timeline, or when is my lot going to be on the agenda for COC approval, or is there anything remaining from the builder's perspective to comply? Because last year, things were known well beforehand, but things started moving only in late October, November, when it was too late, for everything to come into play. So
Barry, can you,
I could shed some light on that. There were some changes to the open space up in this location adjacent to his house. This whole corner slopes down and away in this direction. He's got a slope that comes down to a wetland out here in the back. By the time we could finish up and put a swale that took some of the water away from his property and get that properly stabilized, it was too late in the year for Conservation Commission to sign off on a COC. So once this year, the developer did put in, hydroseeded it, and he also put in a lot of sod in that location around to the corner to initially stabilize it. Wasn't enough for the Conservation Commissions to sign off on it yet. So once that starts growing this year, our assumption is that'll clear up and be able to get their
I think
certificate.
that's your answer, is they're working on it, and that by the spring, they should have it pretty well taken care of.
Okay, so I'm hope at least by April, I finally get the whole thing sorted out, because it'll be over 18 months, by then, since I've closed the house.
All right.
So-
Anything else?
Not on this. If we can move to the trails, please. All right. So coming here, pretty much everything looks okay to us. I know some of the areas of the trails still need to be built. It's not done, especially I was told behind lot 19 and 18, that area is still pending. So I don't know if this is to be done. The color code means that it's to be done or it's already done, but if it's already done, it is not. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up is the access path to the detention basin between lot 13 and 14 is always flooded, even with half an inch of rain. So that grading needs to be revisited.
13 and 14.
13.
Put it in there. Chairman, most of these trails have already been cut in somewhere, as I mentioned before, were existing. Before we finish and complete, we needed Conservation Commission's and ultimately your approval, of which I'm getting a sense that you guys will grant us tonight. Then I can give direction to the developer and his folks to put in the final portions of the trails, how they're going to be maintained, put up the signage, and finishing it. They've also have a significant amount of straw wattles and environmental erosion control barriers that are surrounding the property from the initial days of taking the trees down. So part of the effort to combine that would be to remove that erosion control. Everything's, with the exception of lot 10, the corner there is not stabilized. Everything else has been hydroseeded, stabilized, and we should be able to take that erosion control out, finish cleaning up the trails, and hopefully be done with this so we can get on the.
Sure. What's the timeline for that, Barry?
I'm hoping in the next couple of months.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And the other thing,
I think if you have any other discussions about the trail, either talk to your developer or to the Conservation Board or to Barry about this.
Okay.
And we, as a planning board, we're very happy to grant what we need to grant, which is where the trails go. As far as the maintenance goes, that's not up to the planning board.
sure. Just one last thing I'll ask is, when I overheard the discussion about the trails being open to public, so if the HOA is going to own it, then how does that fall into play? Because if public, it depends on the maintenance and all, it increases the maintenance. So does the HOA have the authority to figure out as to who can come in, come out, but the town won't own it, but the HOA has to still manage it, a public trail?
It will be up to the HOA to manage it, and yes, it is open space to the public.
Okay, all right.
I think
And-
typically, I'm sorry. with
Go
your
ahead.
permission. Typically, trails in town are posted access from dusk till dawn.
Okay.
Or dawn till dusk, sorry. That would be something.
Yeah, access is straight down to us, that makes more sense.
So I don't think that a restriction on hours would be an issue, but,
Sure.
that would have to be negotiated with
Yeah,
probably.
sometimes it's also a
planning
safety,
department.
from the safety point of view as well. Just wanted to, raise it over here. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, is there anything else from the applicant? I'm sorry, we have another comment? If you would come up, what? Would you come up to the microphone and introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Gopi Nekalpudi. I'm a resident of 6 Barrett Owl Drive, live in Silver Hollow Estates. So just quick question on the trails. If the trails are open to public, and coming to the similar question like earlier mentioned, maintenance-wise, what is the maintenance cost and who is going to reimburse to the HOA for the maintenance?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I really could not hear you because you were not speaking into the microphone. Your question was about the cost of maintenance?
Yeah.
That's up to the homeowners association and not up to the planning board.
Okay.
And that would be up to, I assume, getting some sort of discussion with the developer after the trail is finished, getting someone in to look at it, see how much the costs are at that point, and I assume will be apportioned by the homeowners association in any way they wish, they feel is equitable.
The maintenance is included in the homeowner's monthly
Thank you.
fees. And,
Okay.
you can do more or less depending on what you charge all the residents.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to comment on this project? If not, we've got 3 separate items I think we're looking at. One is the planting plan, which I think probably should be adjourned until we've had, there's a meeting has been with the tree warden and conservation before we approve that plan. The second portion is the trails. We could have a motion to approve those tonight. And the third, on the homeowners association, do we have to do anything on that, Jenny?
No, I don't think you have to do anything specific.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think just the 2 votes, like you had mentioned, I recommend continuing the item regarding the landscaping until we know where those additional trees will be planted, and then the board could vote on the location of the trails tonight.
So one question on that. I believe you said you haven't talked to conservation yet on the new trail. One can assume, since the trail is now closer to the properties, that there's no issue, but do we want to have conservation take a look at, I mean, I've never been to this location. Do we want to have conservation take a look at the trail?
I think that's been presented to conservation, and they're
has.
just
Okay,
waiting for our
okay, my
approval.
mistake. I thought you
They-
said it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Because of the,
Yeah.
who's on control, it need
Okay, perfect.
planning
Okay,
to
thank you.
agree, and then it goes back to them. They agree, and then
Right.
we make the trails happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. If there are no other comments, could I have a motion to continue the minor modification to the site plan concerning the planting plan until, how long do you think it'll take you to do this plan? Would you be ready for a next meeting or neither one after?
I think we'll be ready for the next meeting.
All right, so that's the 18th. All right, so could I have a motion to adjourn the de minimis change to the planning plan to April 18th?
I'll just read that in. I move that the planning board, it's okay. I move that the planning board continued the request for the minor modification for the modifications to the landscape plan and HOA documentation until next planning board meeting on March 18th.
Second.
All right. Do we need the reference to the HOA documentation? I don't think we do we?
I mean, it's really up to you. If you want to comment on language that needs to be added,
Okay,
then you can keep it in there.
fine. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. And a motion on the acceptance of the new trail map, modification of the trail map. Do we have a motion on that?
Yeah, do you want me to read this in?
Yep.
I move that the planning board approve the minor modification request for the proposed modification to the walking trails at Silver Hollow Estates as presented in the site plan entitled Walking Trail Modification and Maintenance Plan, prepared by WDA Design Group dated December 18th, 2024, and revised February 5th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much. And I'll follow up on the contract, on the trust language.
And Hazel, just an update on John's whereabouts. He's on his way.
Okay. All right, we're going to skip over 210 Turnbuck Road as Gelsich is on his way, and so we'll wait till his arrival before we discuss that matter. So Jenny, could you give us any planning updates?
Yes. So the first thing I'll mention is that for the downtown plan, on Monday, they will be out doing observations. So you might see the engineers in the yellow vests out and around downtown. So just for the public, I'll put something out just so people know that they'll be doing observations of the traffic in person.
Well, that's the reason those things are in the road at the moment, to count the car counters are out there.
Exactly. Those are just counting the number of cars that come through. And I believe they set them up on South Street, Milk Street, and then East Main. So they'll be doing that, and then we'll have more information after that's done and the surveying is done, which will include a public information meeting where we will ask for additional input on the downtown plan. So more information to come with that. And one of the things I would just ask the board is to think about ways to get out to the public more, increase public engagement. We're trying to get as many people to voice their opinions on it as possible. So if you have any ideas of different ways we can engage the public, I'd love to hear them. The other thing that I will mention is that I know I mentioned this at the last meeting, but there was a wayfinding and branding meeting a couple weeks ago now. And at that meeting, they presented some different concepts to the people that attended. And I'll show them quickly on the screen here. But they will be sending out a survey to get more input on that. So just an example of what this means, because I think there's some confusion on it, is the branding is really developing the town's identity. Wayfinding is more the location of where the signage will go. So these three options were presented to the public, and then we'll be looking for more input on three different things in the survey: the color, the symbol, so to speak, and then the font. So these are just examples of what we were looking at for those three items.
And just to be clear, this is not changing the town seal.
No, this is not changing the town seal, yeah. This
We've
is
been through
for
that.
signage, so.
Unless you want, no, I'm just kidding.
So this is an example of what these wayfinding signs would look like if that brand was chosen with the horse-drawn sleigh. So I thought it was a good opportunity to share that update. We'll be pushing the survey out through social media and on the town website to get as many respondents as we can. But it's just right now for the actual branding, we'll be doing separate outreach for the location of the signage. This is not just for downtown also, this is for all of Westborough.
Yeah, I went to this. This was just one example of the shape. There was other shapes, other different fonts that we considered. So if you take the survey, there's quite a few options that we're looking for, public input on.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's important to get that input on it. So just for the public and the board, if you didn't get a chance to attend that meeting, please respond to that survey when we put it out there.
Jenny, when is the next meeting?
For the wayfinding and branding, we don't have one scheduled yet.
You don't,
Yeah,
okay.
we're going to put out the survey first and see what we get for responses.
And to access the survey?
It will be posted on our website. It's not there yet, but we'll be posting on the website and then the social media pages, so Facebook, and sending it out by email.
All right. Will you make it available for things like the senior center and the recreation department? Can you have surveys there? I know that generally it's helpful to have not just on the internet or on the computer, but possibly have some written, have paper surveys there for people. Perhaps you can put it at the library and at the town hall, the senior center, the recreation department.
Yeah, I can definitely talk to our economic development coordinator who's leading the project and see if she can put some paper surveys out at those places. That's a good idea. So that's all really I have, but I know that our assistant town planner had some updates also on a transportation initiative, if she can
Good.
come up and share.
All right.
Okay, so we just wanted to give you an update. Last week, I did a presentation to the CMMPO for a micro grant that I applied for bike racks.
Could you just tell us what CMMPO is?
Central Mass Municipal Planning Organization. So it's like our regional planning group. That's who I went through for the grant. She made me aware that this could be a potential opportunity to get some bike racks around town. So we thought we would just go through that presentation with you so you can know what we were working on. So the first thing we did is we identified the goals of the application. This is to encourage residents to make short, everyday trips using their bikes instead of their cars, resulting in reduced parking congestion and improved air quality through reduced emissions. Another aspect is to provide a safe and secure location to park bikes when traveling to work, school, recreation, downtown, and shopping. And most importantly, this would help create some visibility within the community that highlights the efforts that are being made to improve our pedestrian and bike infrastructure. So when we sat down, we had to identify, do we have groups of people that we think would be open to the concept of changing their mode of transportation? And when you look at some of the demographics, we're home to 22,000 people, and our largest age group, 27%, are 19 years and younger, which is kind of important. Those people don't even have driver's license yet most of the time. So they would be great candidates for this, followed by 20 to 34, and then 35 to 44. We're 69% white and 31% minority, and we have 39% renter occupied, which is higher than any of the other surrounding communities. And in addition, we've been experiencing steady population growth. We expect to grow 7% over the next 30 years. So overall, we do believe our demographics show a group of people likely to make this change. Then we sat down and did an analysis of need. Since COVID, we've done several comprehensive plans in town. These are a few. We have a complete streets prioritization plan, which has a specific goal that references the need for bike parking in downtown locations. We have our master plan that had a specific chapter dedicated just to transportation. A climate action plan that highlights the need for reduced vehicle emissions and encourages bike transportation. We are currently doing our downtown development plan, which is at 25% design, and part of this plan will address the rotary circulation, but also proposed sidewalk and bike lane infrastructure. And then we also have our B-Walt multi-use trail development, which provides east-west connection through town, which links income and minority designated environmental justice communities. And then we have our branding and wayfinding that Jenny just talked about, and part of that will provide signage for not only vehicle parking, but bike parking as well. So all of these reports confirm support from the town for improved bike infrastructure. So then we had to decide where are we going to put these racks. This is a map of the town, and these are the two locations, this area on the north side of Route 9, which is heavy with our recreation locations. We've got the town beach here. We'll have a dog park going in. We have the pickleball courts over there. And then Haskell Field, baseball fields. But then it is important to note we have the Del Webb Chauncey Lake, which is 700 plus units of 55 and older community. And the state housing is over there as well for the environmental justice community. And then the other area is south of Route 9 in the downtown. That's this designation. And then this is a call out box that shows you close proximity to the high school, the library, the town offices, the town hall, retail and restaurant, shops. This is the food pantry. This is Bay State Commons, Reliant medical offices, a grocery store, Post 22, which is training for adults with disabilities, and then our community and senior center. So then we looked, once the locations were identified, we wanted to see how many people would be in close proximity to those locations. We decided that 3 miles is a distance that we consider too far to walk, but maybe not far enough to make taking the car the only choice. It would be a manageable bike ride for most people. And the circles on the left, these colors indicate the locations, and then we did a 3-mile radius out from those. And you'll see when you do that, it pretty much encompasses all of Westborough. So that's a good sign that pretty much everyone in Westborough is within 3 miles of these locations. So it's a possibility for everybody. And then this slide just shows the locations that we just talked about, and then the things that are in close proximity to those locations. So all in all, there'll be 20 new racks. 7 are circular. That's this one on the left. We think that's a little more visually appealing, and that'll go in the Main Street area of downtown and in front of retail stores. Everything else, the fields, the community center, those will be the inverted U racks. So there's 2 bikes per each of these racks, resulting in 40 new spots around town. So that is that particular project. Did you have any questions, or? We'll find out in the spring. We find out if we make it to the second round of review and eligibility. If we are awarded the grant, then the money would come in October of '25, and we would have until September of '26.
there any questions by any board member on this?
No, I think it's great. Thank you
Looks like
for.
a great,
Yeah.
looks like a great project, and certainly will combine with what we're trying to do with the downtown and other places in the area. Mark, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, you don't have to go back to the slide that shows the location, but as we look at downtown, our downtown plan and study, are any of these bike racks going onto sidewalks that might end up getting improved as part of our long-term vision down there, or are these all on spaces that, we feel like the sidewalks are going to be undisturbed?
Well, the locations that we designated were locations also that the downtown plan designated.
Okay.
So as far as how that gets incorporated into the timeline of the construction, I'm not exactly sure how that will play out, but like I said, we do have an entire another year after we get the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a long way from doing significant sidewalk improvements downtown. And I'm sure we could always just have DPW take these racks out while that was.
Right, they can be
Yeah,
unscrewed.
That's all.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. John, do you have any questions? No. Thank you, Kristen. Sounds like a great project.
Is that good?
All right, since John Gelsich has been able to join us, we will now go back to our agenda and discuss 210 Turnpike Road. Is the applicant here tonight? It's the applicant for 210 Turnpike Road we'll now discuss.
Does the board want the plans up?
Yeah.
Yes?
Thanks.
Before you start, I just want to point out that we've had a number of public hearings on this. The applicant, I know, is going to respond to questions that were raised by a petition which we received. The board has had a chance to review all the submissions from the public on this particular application, and we obviously have heard a great deal from people who live in the area. After the applicant has made some comments in regard, I believe, just to the petition at this point, I will open this for public comment. I would appreciate, however, if any comments are to be made, that this would bring up new material. We do not want to have to go back over things that we've already heard. And please be aware, we have reviewed. We have been here at the meetings. I myself watched the one that I was not here for, and I think we all have heard this, what feelings from the public and from the applicant on most of the issues that have been raised. I will then, as I said, I will open this to public comment, and I would then ask you to keep your remarks to no more than 2 minutes. But I'd like the applicant to go first, and then any comments from the board, and then I'll open for public comment.
So for the record, Sam Alfronti, professional engineer in the state of Commonwealth.
Would you speak into the microphone, please?
Apologies. Sam Alfronti, professional engineer, state of the Commonwealth. I'm here with Solely Engineering on behalf of 6 Humphrey Street Realty Trust. I won't go through this. This is the same presentation I made last hearing. If there's any specific comments, I can certainly go to any slides or discuss anything specifically.
I think only if you have some new comments
I
to make.
don't. Yeah, and Jenny forwarded the petition letter on Monday morning. And the only comments and statement that John and I felt that was necessary to make was just that we understand the abutter's right and displeasure with the project. But we do feel it's worth noting that the petition which is submitted into the record, makes several false assertions. There's a couple, the wording of the petition, it classifies the Park Street and Route 9 intersection and considers it dangerous. I just want to make the board aware that that was part of the traffic impact study that was submitted and reviewed to the town, reviewed by town staff, town engineering staff, as well as the third-party consultant, GPI. So that was part of the whole analysis. It took historical crash data from Mass DOT as well as the Westborough Police Department. And then we also, the planner's recommendation, we did reach out to Mass DOT District 3 regarding this intersection, and they indicated to both myself and the planner that this intersection was not on their radar due to its lack of traffic volume, lack of historic crash data, and there's been no complaints that we're aware of this intersection that we've kind of heard over the course of this project. And then I do want to just reiterate that the traffic impact study was prepared in accordance with the Mass DOT specifications and regulations. The third-party traffic consultant agreed with the analysis of the study. And our study was revised accordingly to address some concerns and issues, which resulted in the Traffic Study Act being expanded a lot further than a development of this size typically has. And that was also reviewed and agreed upon with the third-party consultant as well. Safety and accessibility was a main portion of that traffic impact study. And I just wanted to reiterate that this project won't make Park Street, and I quote, impassable, nor will it impact trades, people, school buses, or emergency vehicles at any time, and that's not the intent of the project.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody on the board that would like to ask Mr. Malafonte any questions on this? If not, I think I'll open this to public comment at the moment. We do have a draft decision, which we will talk about after I've opened this hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to make a comment? And I would just like to reiterate what I said before. We're willing to listen to any new information people have, but we have reviewed all the information we've received, the records, and listened to all of you over the public hearings. Yes, sir.
Ron Malconian, 5 Shaker Way. I just want to say that I found the BWalk presentation very interesting. One of the first things they said was they wanted people to use bikes because they want to clean up the air and they wanted to get rid of traffic congestion. And we're asking for 100 cars to be idling through a drive-through and creating all the pollution over on Park Street. And that was never brought up. And I'm just wondering why the BWalk people aren't, interested in the danger of the BWalk going through there and the pollution that's going to be raised by having all these cars going through that drive-through. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Wayne Webster, 3 Essex Way, also representing the villages at Walker Meadow. Concerning the issue about the lack of crash data at that corner, the reason is no one takes that turn, and I've talked to the police chief about it and asked him to think about the difference that would happen at the point at which, for instance, the peer review study said there would be 88 cars per hour taking that corner. Right now, if you go and sit there, there are very few that come around that corner because of the dangerousness of that corner. Beyond that, I only have one other comment, and that is that all of us, the 180 homes that live and abut on Park Street, we have to use Park Street to get to our homes, and we have to use Park Street to leave our homes. We have no exit out the back. So at the point at which we're adding 105 cars per hour, not my number, their number, we're going to find it very difficult for about 6 hours a day to be able to access our homes. That's a hardship. It's a defined, that's defined within the statute, and it's a hardship for the neighbors, and we just can't, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but it'll be very difficult for the 180 or so homes that have to use Park Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on this application? Yes, sir.
Chris Wagner, Park Street, number 11. In the last two meetings, we heard talk about revitalizing Route 9 businesses. Make no mistake, this is not a Route 9 business. It's a Park Street business. The ingress and egress and added traffic congestion fall on Park Street, an overwhelmingly residential street. Given that there's already a Starbucks, literally 1 minute down the road, accessible from every direction, it seems unlikely that adding a dueling Starbucks on Park Street will have any meaningful new ROI for the town. We talked about congestion. We talked about the fact that this is street zoned for a restaurant, but the traffic footprint of a part-time restaurant versus a popular drive-through coffee shop operating 5 to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, do not even remotely compare. It doesn't matter if the applicant has designed the world's safest parking lot. The real problem is the traffic getting to and from this location. Adding deceleration and acceleration lanes on Route 9 here should be a prerequisite before considering adding another reason to turn onto Park Street. And lastly, I'm pro-business. I even like Starbucks and sometimes go there. We recently had 14 teenagers at the home who frequented Starbucks. It's like Disneyland to teenagers. It's not about whether this is a fine business, but rather about this site choice. I challenge every board member here to think about whether you would want Disney on your neighborhood block. As you look around the audience here, I don't see anyone advocating for this except for the applicant. Look at all the voices and faces that you're hearing from. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Over here.
Hi, I'm Judy Sterling from 14 Quaker Way in Walker Meadow. I'm just curious, maybe a quick show of hands. Have all of you done the due diligence to double check the fancy road use test that you were presented with and gone out and taken that drive? Maybe gone up 135, made a right on Route 9, gone down to Park Street, made the right turn into this parking lot, come back out, back up to Route 9, and then tried to make a right.
I think you will
At rush
find the
hour.
planning board does its due diligence.
Sorry?
We as a planning board do our due diligence.
Did you do that drive?
I'm not going to answer one way or another. What I'm telling you is, I'm not going to raise my hand. I think we've all done our due diligence. We've read all the documentation. We have been very careful. We've been a walking tour of the plan of the planned property, and I'm sure all of us have driven back and forth through that area since we all are town residents.
So you've all seen it, experienced it at rush hour,
Thank you.
coming down that hill, every one of you. Okay, I think I
Yeah,
got
I
my
think the
answer.
answer is yes. I think we've all done that.
yeah.
I know myself personally, sorry Hazel if I'm
That's all right.
speaking out of
Yeah,
turn
go
here, but I know
ahead.
myself personally have done that several times, including the other day during the rush hour time. So
During
yes,
rush
we
hour.
have all done that.
With no coffee in your system.
No coffee.
Is there a point, though? I mean,
Yeah, because if you've done it once,
I've definitely done that drive, but if you're just asking us to get an answer,
yeah,
sure, I've done that drive.
okay, thank
Okay?
you.
I've done that drive
At rush
hundreds of
hour,
times,
made
probably, yeah.
off of Route 9.
I think we're all familiar with the drive, and we've all done it.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Excuse me, could I add, I don't know also some of the new faces that are here, and Hazel, you just mentioned it, but prior or right after, I think we submitted sometime in, I know it was cold out, but it was November, there was several board members, as myself, and town staff that did visit the site and did a site walk, and I know many of us probably took that route just as further information for. There was a site walk prior to, I believe, the first public hearing that many of the planning board members attended and walked the site, traveled to the site and walked to the site.
Excuse me, I don't think we're not looking at any back and forth here at this particular time. Yes, sir.
Tom Persia, One Shaker Way. I'm just curious in terms of the traffic studies. Am I correct that when they come out of the parking lot, are they to turn right or left?
It's a full movement exit.
So they go either way?
They can go either way, yes.
We already know what Route 9 looks like. What's been done, what did the traffic study say in terms of the junction of Milk Street and Park? Was any work done on that at all?
Yeah, I can answer that if
Yeah.
the board would like me to. So initially, in our initial application, we analyzed the site driveway and Park Street as an intersection, as well as the Park Street and Turnpike Road Route 9 intersection. It was brought to our attention, as well as many residents, regarding the potential issues that other areas that are kind of adjacent to this property have. So we expanded our traffic analysis, and we included the Milk Street and Park Street intersection, as well as the Milk Street and Route 9 on-ramp and I think westbound exit ramp, if I'm not mistaken. And that was part of the traffic study that was submitted and reviewed by town staff, as well as the third-party consultant. And what they analyze is a level of service at each intersection. So it's an A through F grade, and it was determined that the detriment or impact of the development didn't detrimentally impact the network from a level of service analysis.
So let me make sure I just understand. Your study indicated an average of 105 vehicles an hour?
So one thing that's kind of misinterpreted on that is
Please.
when you analyze traffic, you use a pass-by rate, which is, I believe, if I'm speaking offhand, but I believe we used a 55% pass-by rate. So what that means is 55% of the vehicles, or 55% of the trips that we're anticipating to visit this facility, based on empirical data from ITE, which is the traffic engineers. It's a commonly used metric to evaluate traffic. 55% of the users we're anticipating to visit the site are already on the network. So they might be utilizing Park Street on a day-to-day or once a week, and now that there's a new coffee shop at that location, they'll stop there. Or they.
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So you're saying that of the 105 that you anticipate with the 55 are already on the road?
So we are anticipating net new trips in the AM of 92, which is 47 entering and 45 exiting. So it's not one trip is one entering, and then another trip is an exit. So if you visit the coffee shop, you actually have two trips.
Okay.
So we're anticipating a total of 92 new trips.
Okay, so you're not talking about cars already there, you're talking about just coming in first.
Correct. So you could be.
So 92, instead of 105, it's 92?
It's 206. I'm not sure where you're getting the 105
I
number.
thought 105 was in your study.
We have 105 total new trips entering.
Okay.
Yep.
So what you're telling me now, it's only 45 entering?
It's 47. Yep.
Did something happen?
New trips. There's a 55% pass.
So 47 are new.
Correct. So 58.
So where are the other ones, are the other ones already there?
They're on the network.
When you say network, what do you
Excuse
mean?
me, all right.
I don't want to go back and forth.
No,
but
I don't think,
I'm sorry, I just don't understand what a network is. I know what a road is. I don't know what a network is.
I can elaborate a little bit further.
all right, but I don't think we need the back and forth. If you'd like to explain this, then
Yeah.
that's going to be it.
Okay, so when you're evaluating the traffic, you're not looking at it at a microcosm. It's kind of a macro, like you're looking at a lot larger picture than just the site. So you're taking into account, we took into account trips on Route 9, trips on Park Street, trips on Milk Street, exiting vehicles off Route 9 onto Milk Street. So it's a lot larger picture than you just saying that the trips are there, if that makes.
I think let me just ask one last question, if I may.
All right.
What I'm trying to understand is there are going to be an increase in cars coming either onto Route 9 or onto the junction of Milk Street and Park Street.
Correct.
What I'm trying to understand in your study is, what did you conclude? There's no impact? Is that what you're telling me?
So there is an impact. That's clear, and it's stated in our traffic study. It's just when you evaluate traffic and projects specifically, it's not whether there's an impact. And if there is an impact, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a good idea. You take it from a safety perspective as well as a detriment to the network. Okay. So for instance, Park Street and Route 9 is a principal arterial and a stop condition. That intersection could be in Worcester, Westborough, Arlington, it could be anywhere in the state, it would be a level of service F, because principal arterials with a stop condition, it's not conducive for quick movements. And how a level of service works is the queue time that a vehicle stops there. So there's going to be an increased queue, an increased time stopped at that intersection. But I think what a lot of the residents here are kind of miscomprehending is that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an increase or a decrease in safety, if that makes sense. So that's how we analyze the intersection.
I think I understand you're looking at a broader picture.
All right, okay,
you.
does that answer your question? Thank you. All right, sir in the back there.
Thank you. My name is Tom Wolfman, 11 Stagecoach Circle. I just want to add one thing, and I apologize if it's already been stated in a different meeting. I've been watching meetings. That is that this particular exit off Route 9 is the only exit that I'm aware of that doesn't have a cutoff. The Cloverleaf at Route 135, when we enter Milk Street or head toward Northborough, obviously has a third lane. Most between our Park Street and, as far as I know, going all the way out toward 495 and in the other direction, all have cutoffs. This is the only intersection that I'm aware of that doesn't have a cutoff, a proper cutoff to enter or exit Park Street. So the idea that somehow this is as safe as any place, and maybe no one says it is, it presents a safety hazard for all the people who are in that area. My neighbors on either side of me are dead against this. I know that the board has probably done the due diligence and, technically, it probably can go through. But I'm telling you right now, this is not going to be good. It's going to have an impact on us. And I guess that's the way it goes in Westborough. That's all I need to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Phyllis Jaffe, 9 Quaker. I've been accused of pre-worrying, and I'm pre-worried about if you approve this and all of the things that we've been talking about come to pass, and Park Street becomes a disaster, Park Street at Milk Street becomes a disaster in terms of turning, getting on, getting off, accidents. What's our recourse? What's going to happen? How is it going to be remedied if it's approved and turns out to be the disaster that most of us think it will be? Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter? All right. We do have a draft decision before us tonight. I think we could take a look at it and go through it and have board comments as to comments they have on this, or whether there's some other way they'd like to proceed. Our other option, obviously, is to adjourn this to a further meeting if they feel there's further discussion that needs to be held or more information the board needs before they have to make a decision. So, your pleasure. Christina, do you have any comments?
I don't have any additional comments before we go into or do you want to discuss the?
Well, we'll go through the decision.
Okay.
If you'd like to move forward with the decision. That is something I was trying to find out from the board, whether they wish to continue this.
My honest opinion is that this is extremely difficult, and you start on the other end, please, with John Gelsich. Hazel, please.
I'm ready to move forward and close the public hearing and go through the decision.
Mark?
Well, I kind of made my point last week, and I'm not really supportive of this, and I was going to bring this up when we went through the decision, but In the draft decision, it spells out number 7, under the bylaw, a special permit shall be granted.
Mark, what I'm trying to find out now is whether you'd like to move forward in order to discuss the draft decision at this point, or whether you feel that you need more information before
Well,
we move forward.
I mean, I've asked for information all along on the impact on Park Street, the fact that there's a sidewalk that crosses with no crosswalk. There's another sidewalk on Treetop Park where kids or whoever has to cross Park Street without a crosswalk to get to the sidewalk.
Well,
I brought up a question.
My question
Can I
to
finish?
you, Mark, is
I brought up a
whether-
question about solar glare last week. I've heard no response on that, other than it's not the job of a traffic engineer. I feel like you've got 50,000 cars heading east. I don't know how many per hour that is in the morning. You've got a 5-foot wide shoulder.
Mark,
right?
but what I am trying to find
So you're not
out is
gonna let
whether
me
you
talk
want
for a
to, and not at this, what I'm trying to find out is whether you're prepared to move forward to discuss a draft decision and close the public hearing, or whether you're not. That's what I'm trying to find out from the board at the
Okay,
moment.
I'm ready to move forward because I have my, I know how I'm going to vote unless the applicant can give me more information that changes my mind. But it doesn't seem to be happening, so let's move it forward.
All right. John?
Yes, I'm ready to move forward.
And I'm ready to move forward. All right, Jenny, should we start? Do we need to close the public hearing first? All right, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor? All right, Jenny.
You want me to pull it up on the screen, or do you just want the copy in front of you? To review the copy in front of you?
Normally, we just go through it as a copy. We don't pull it up, whichever. John?
Does the applicant have?
Yes, this
Yeah,
has been,
We don't have a copy with us, but she's shared it with us prior to the hearing.
Okay.
They have seen it.
So through the chair, just a procedural question. Do we want to go through the details of the decision? I think it might be beneficial at some point, it doesn't have to be right now, to go through the decision criteria, just so the public and the board and the applicant know what the planning board is making their decision based on.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if we want to do that now
I think
or
now is appropriate
after.
to do that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
so what would you like me to do?
So we have 2 permits, the site plan and the special permit. For the special permit, I think we've got pretty much in the findings what the decision criteria is, but if you could just spell that out for us, that would, I think, be helpful. And then the same thing for the site plan.
Sure.
For the special permit.
Special permit first, then the site
Oh,
plan.
okay. I could.
So the criteria is spelled out in the general facts in the draft decision, as we do for every decision. So I'll just start with the special permit. So I assume you would just want me to talk about number 7 and what the criteria is for a special permit?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry, yes?
Yes, please,
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay. So under the bylaw, a special permit shall be granted unless, because of a condition peculiar to the particular case, but not generally true for similar permitted uses on other sites in the same district, it appears that nuisance, hazard, or congestion will be created, or for other reasons, there will be substantial harm to the neighborhood or derogation from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. So that is for a special permit to be granted.
And sorry, just to be clear, that is for the drive-through only, not necessarily the coffee shop use.
Correct. The coffee shop use without the drive-through is a use allowed by right that only requires a site plan review, and a site plan review is just required to meet the criteria of the planning board regulations, such as the queuing pattern. It must meet that criteria, and then, of course, the zoning bylaw. Anything else on that?
Thank you.
All right. Jenny, you want to go through the decision, draft decision with us?
Yes. Would you like to go through the facts first? And then the findings of fact,
Yeah,
or?
let's go through, starting with statement of facts.
Okay.
I think you can generalize in some of the
Yeah, so
verbiage.
the first few are pretty general. John Nichols, a representative of 6 Humphrey Street Realty Trust, is the owner of the land. And then the land is described in a deed recorded at the Worcester Registry of Deeds. The land is in a zoning district that's classified as highway business. The neighborhood the site is located in consists of mostly commercial uses located in the highway business zoning district, and there are also abutting residential uses, including a 12-unit residential site directly abutting the site along Park Street, known as Stagecoach Circle. The property also has frontage on 2 roads, Turnpike Road, Route 9, and Park Street. The applicant is proposing to open a drive-through coffee shop with interior and exterior seating. Local zoning regulations require a special permit for the drive-through restaurant use in the highway business zoning district, and so the applicant applied for zoning relief under that section. Our local zoning regulations also require a full site plan review, of which the applicant applied to the board for relief under those sections. And then, as I mentioned before, there's criteria for the granting of a special permit. The zoning district the site is located within is densely developed with those commercial businesses that include drive-through uses, retail and office, and other commercial uses. Public comments raise concerns about the traffic to and from the project site. The applicant has submitted a detailed traffic impact study, which has provided the board with an analysis of the potential traffic impacts and has been further reviewed through the peer review process. The study area includes the areas at Turnpike Road and Park Street, the intersection of Milk Street and Park Street, and the intersection of Turnpike Road, eastbound ramp, and Milk Street. Those are the general facts. Any comments on those before I move to the findings? No? Okay. So the findings, and do you want me to go through each one at a time and then you'll discuss them, or? Okay.
Yep.
So number 10, the proposed use of a coffee shop with a drive-through aligns with the other uses within the highway business zoning district and will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw.
Are there any comments from the board members on that? All right, number 11.
The project will serve the community need. The special permit will allow a new business at the site, which would result in the revitalization of an underutilized commercial property in Westborough and will overall provide an improved use of the site compared to the existing conditions.
Any comments? Number 12.
MassDOT has confirmed that this intersection is not considered a high crash location and is not prioritized for safety improvements. MassDOT has also stated that this project will not require an indirect access permit. The town's traffic peer review consultant has confirmed that the capacity analysis, safety analysis, traffic report, and other supporting data indicate that the traffic flow is not anticipated to be negatively affected by the proposed new use.
Are there any comments in this section?
The number of parking spaces meets the zoning requirements, and the drive-through configuration and queuing plan meets the requirements of the planning board rules and regulations.
Any comments?
It is not anticipated that there will be adverse fiscal impacts on town services due to the proposed project and will most likely result in increased tax revenue for the town.
Any comments?
No.
In making its decision, the board found no evidence of conditions peculiar to this case that would not be true for similar uses on other sites in the same district.
Any comments?
Mark, my
Hazel, I have,
Yeah.
I have a lot of comments on this. When do you want me to make these as we go through, or?
I would say under conditions of approval, let's finish.
Well, sorry, Hazel, is he looking to make comments on the findings or
I
on
mean,
the
what are you looking to
decision?
make comments on? The findings, the
I have-
conditions of approval?
Again, I think I'll save my comments until we discuss whatever motion is made here tonight, and
So the intent, so Hazel, may I
Yeah,
speak
go
on
ahead.
that? So the intent of having the findings here and separating them from the conditions and separating from the facts is the findings basically lay out the conformance to the decision criteria. So if we have disagreements on what these findings say, I think we should discuss them now rather than wait until we're discussing the permit.
I'm happy to discuss this whenever I want. I tried to discuss it already, but was basically told it wasn't the time.
So now is the
Whenever you're
time.
ready, I'll give you all my reasons why I don't want to vote for this.
That was one of the reasons that I went through each of these paragraphs of the findings, is that people, if people wish to raise questions about them, they would do it on the individual findings. So,
Okay, so can we just go back to the general facts for a second? Number 7. Under the bylaw, a special permit shall be granted unless, because of a condition peculiar to this particular case, but not generally true for similar permitted uses on other sites in the same district, it appears that nuisance, hazard, or congestion will be created, or for other reasons, there will be substantial harm to the neighborhood or derogation from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. So this is purely related to
the special permit.
the special permit for the drive-through, right? We're not talking about the coffee shop use. We're talking about the drive-through.
That's correct.
So nuisance, check. Hazard, check. Congestion, check. Right? I mean, these are all going to be created by this project. And if you would go back to, let's see, the peer review said, the recommendation to widen the shoulder from 5 to 8 feet to allow the shoulder to be used for deceleration was made as a result of safety concerns that the 36 to 88 additional right turns onto Park Street per hour during peak traffic generated by the proposed coffee shop may result in a rear end and/or sideswipe collision pattern on Turnpike Road. Safety. Congestion. The projected speed to take that right turn from Route 9 onto Park Street was 15 miles an hour. The speed limit on that road, I believe, is 55. So without a widened shoulder, every car on that road is going to have to slow down in order to 15 to make that turn in the right lane. How is that not going to cause additional congestion on Route 9 eastbound during peak traffic? That's check number 2. Nuisance. We have 126 people who have signed a petition saying that this will be a nuisance. Exactly what are we doing here? Are we just ignoring hazards, safety, and nuisance to allow a drive-through? I don't understand the point of that. I mean, I'm fine with a restaurant use, but you're driving vehicles to this site daily, right? How often do you go to a restaurant? Once a month? How often do you go to Starbucks? Once a day? I don't understand why we would approve this.
So I would.
I had a couple more comments, but I'll sorry.
Do you have a couple more comments on paragraph 7, or?
Well, I would like to point out, right, I've got incomplete information on any impacts between Route 9 and Milk Street. I pointed out that there's 2 crossings there without any signalized crossings. I'm not expecting them to fix this, but I want to know what kind of safety hazards all these extra cars are creating and what the town has to deal with. And I was expecting the traffic study to analyze what our future needs are going to be on Park Street so I could understand the fiscal impacts on the town. Secondly, I brought up the issue of solar glare. I still don't have an answer as to whether that's an actual issue in the mornings when this coffee shop will be at its peak hours, right? And whether that's going to create an even further safety hazard beyond what the traffic study and peer reviewer have already brought up. Third, we've already, as a board, limited access to secondary roads. When you say this particular site, right, we have a gas station across the street, Extra Mart with a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, and this board eliminated the rear, well, asked the applicant to close the rear entrance onto Oak Street to prevent the users of that drive-through and gas station from going onto local roads. Why are we allowing that on this one, right? The Oak Street isn't even really a residential street until you get down to Chauncey, right? But we still limited it. So we've made a precedent there. When you look at other drive-throughs on Route 9, I don't know of any other one that's accessed singly, right? I mean, by one access off a side street, right? We have, the McDonald's is accessed, I guess, off of...
Mark.
No, I'm not done.
All right, what I'm saying is that you seem to have a number of complaints about, is it number 7 that you're talking about on this? And if you would like to take them one by one, or just, I mean, if you want to go through a whole litany, go ahead.
You asked, I think number 7, I'm pointing out why this is a particular case of this site that makes it unique, why the drive-through, like, why we haven't done this in other permitted uses, drive-through uses in town. The McDonald's has 2 access points. One is off of East Main Street, one is off of, it's not really Bellows Road, but whatever that access road is, right? And to be honest with you, the McDonald's was probably pre-existing with the drive-through before the zoning. The other one is the other Starbucks and Burger King, and there are 2 access points there, one directly to Route 9 and one onto Lyman Street. Now, Lyman Street is a lot different road than Park Street, but we still only have 1 access point to this site from Park Street, which, you know, again, I've made my point about what, and the last point I have is you have a queue of 12 vehicles, I believe it is, minimum. You also have people going in and ordering, you know, with their app and picking up. When we talk about congestion on Park Street, I think it's going to be a long, congested wait to get back onto Route 9 eastbound. That doesn't exist currently.
So I want to point out Taco Bell is only one point of access to Route 9, and they have a drive-through.
No, you can go out the back way to the Indian Meadow driveway. You can go through, trust me, I know this.
Do you have to drive through a parking lot for an office building?
Yep,
So that's not really an access point, because that's a private
it
property.
is because it's the same lot.
Instead of going back further, there are other members of the board that would like to comment on paragraph 7, or should we continue through?
Yeah, John, did you have?
John, you were going to make a point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I understand where Mark's coming from. You know, basically putting forth different nuisances and hazards and congestion. Any project that we look at in town is going to be a nuisance to somebody. There might be congestion due to any type of development we do. It's really trying to see what harm it does to the immediate community. And I think the findings of fact that's saying MassDOT saying that this intersection is not considered a high crash location. We have the initial traffic study, the peer review, kind of clear up a lot of these issues in my mind. So it checks the box for me.
So I also want to, sorry, Hazel.
Go ahead. No.
I also wanted to address that because the point that I had on this is the nuisance hazard or congestion will be created or for other reasons, there will be substantial harm to the neighborhood. So the nuisance, congestion, or hazard has to create substantial harm to the neighborhood. Not that it exists, that nuisance, hazard, or congestion creates substantial harm to the neighborhood. Any development that's going to introduce new trips is arguably going to create congestion by definition. So it's the fact that those nuisances, hazards, or congestions will create substantial harm to the neighborhood. And given MassDOT, peer review consultant who the town hired on their behalf are saying this is not going to create substantial harm to the neighborhood based on traffic, I don't see how we can say that that is not met.
Well, MassDOT didn't say that. They just gave us
Okay, so our peer review consultant has said, hold on, Mark, hold on, I'm answering now. So the fact that our peer review consultant hired by the town and our town engineer who has reviewed it and did not bring up any concerns about substantial harm to the neighborhood. So where are we getting that there's substantial harm to the neighborhood based on this nuisance or congestion?
Okay, so I read you the letter from the paragraph in the peer review where they were, to widen the shoulder from 5 feet to 8 feet is result of safety concerns that the 36 to 88 additional right turns may result in rear end and/or side swipe collision pattern.
Is that a substantial harm to the neighborhood? That there's a chance that there might be more accidents? The fact that there's more cars on the road increases the chance of accidents by default. The more cars will create higher chance of accidents. So how does that create?
But John, this is a special permit for a drive-through. This isn't, I mean, I don't understand your point.
We have to meet the requirement to deny something that those nuisances, hazards, or congestion will create substantial harm to the neighborhood. That's the decision criteria we have to decide this on. So how is increasing the number of potential accidents?
The criteria is congestion, nuisance, hazard. You met all three of those.
That will be substantial harm to the neighborhood.
I don't understand how a safety concern is not a substantial harm to the neighborhood. I don't get it.
The chance of an accident being higher due to higher frequency of trips is a given. How does that increase the substantial harm to the neighborhood?
Because
Through the drive-through.
they don't have another way off. That's how they get off the street. Huge, big.
So excuse me, Hazel. So the reason we're going through this is because if we deny a special permit and the applicant appeals it, we will lose in court because we have a peer review consultant that we have hired saying this is not going to create substantial harm to the neighborhood. So if we deny a special permit based on that, we will lose. So what we're doing right now, excuse me, the public hearing has been closed. What we're doing right now is trying to protect the residents of Westborough from an unnecessary lawsuit, because there are decision criteria that we have to decide permits on. And if we can't meet that level of the decision criteria, then we will not win.
Christina, you had a question?
I don't. I think it's written in such a way where it's open into interpretation about what that means. I think if you, to your point, John, of course there will be more traffic because there are more cars, right? More potential for accidents. I think though, given the difficult part is that this is how the residents get out of their own street. It's not the same as having a lot of other avenues to avoid the traffic. That is what makes it difficult, and the fact that both of the intersections are difficult. It doesn't matter if I would go to this coffee shop or not, but I wouldn't, because I wouldn't want to deal with that with the corners. And I feel like this is very difficult. It's a very tough spot. I understand the permit, and I understand the zoning and the right, but when you just think about it as a space that it's very difficult to say that this feels safe based on experience driving on the road and knowing the increase in cars. I totally hear you on the study. I think Mark's point on there are some pieces of the study, but maybe there are still gaps where we don't have visibility into what that will be, but it's a really tough spot. I don't know.
I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that this is the safest intersection. I'm not saying this is the best location or design. What I'm saying is we have a traffic study that our peer review consultant that was hired by the planning board is saying that this is not going to create substantial harm to the neighborhood based on the traffic from the drive-through, right? So if we didn't have a drive-through, one can argue there might not be as much traffic going to this coffee shop. But one can also argue that there is going to be the same amount of traffic going to this coffee shop. And so if we say that the special permit is going to create substantial harm to the neighborhood with no actual evidence from a traffic engineer saying that, I am concerned that the town will lose on appeal.
All right, basically, my concern is that we have information in front of us we've gotten from the professionals we have hired, and I feel strongly that any decision we make needs to be based upon the information which we've received from our professionals, particularly in regards to traffic, which is not something I am an expertise in. And I have to rely upon that. And that is the kind of information that I would rely upon in order to grant a special permit. Jenny, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, to make sure the board saw that the peer reviewer also added in things that could mitigate some of those concerns that were listed in the peer review, and I did add those into the suggested conditions of approval.
I mean, I think we as a board, as far as I'm concerned, is that if the applicant meets the criteria for special permit, then it is up to the board to put within its conditions the things that they can do to protect the neighborhood and the people who live in that, and help with the condition, to mitigate any damage or problems which we feel that the neighbors have as far as the particular project. And this is the purpose of, in doing a careful decision, is to put in conditions which will protect the neighborhood and help with take into consideration the comments made by the people that live in the area.
Jenny, what were the two, remind me what the peer review said to mitigate some of the issues?
Yes, so they talked about either building a wider shoulder on Route 9.
Which Mass DOT said is not needed.
Currently not needed.
Okay.
However, we are in talks with Mass DOT regardless of this project about that, because I do know that there's existing concerns, but we cannot legally require the applicant to construct something on a state-owned road. So the other recommendation from the peer reviewer was to put a contribution towards that in the design or construction of widening of the shoulder.
Perhaps we should move forward and look at the conditions of approval.
Sorry, Hazel,
Go ahead.
wasn't there one more, like a review process, a look back?
Yes, so the other thing that was recommended was that and this is something typical that I've seen in other decisions the planning board has done, that the planning board reviews the operation after 1 year of being open, and if they find that there are issues related to the queuing, then they can ask the applicant to come back and mitigate those concerns, or mitigate those issues, rather.
And this is what the peer review study told us?
That specifically was not in the peer review, but it was after discussions with other town staff. Yeah.
Go through the conditions.
I don't know, have we finished going through comments on all the
I'm sorry,
findings?
we were up to number
That was 7.
50 as, I think we were up to number, what?
Hang on, Hazel, I just want to make sure, Mark,
Yeah.
I know you had a lot of questions on 7. Before we move past 7, did you have anything else with that, or 8 or 9? I just didn't want to skip over anything else that you had.
Sorry.
John, I appreciate it. I could probably talk till I'm blue in my face on this. But I think I made most of my points.
Okay. Okay, then we can, all right, Hazel.
I think, Jenny, we were up to number 6. Well, did she renumber? No.
I read all of the findings. So if you want, I can go into the conditions.
Okay, so the findings we've gone through. All right. The conditions of approval?
Okay, so we have our standard conditions that the decision will be recorded. It's limited to the site plan that was in front of us. I believe the last date was February 20th. The dumpster shall be enclosed and located in the designated area. The applicant will provide a long-term operation and maintenance plan that will be subject to the review and approval by the town's DPW and engineering department. It will also include the restriping of any lanes or pavement markings as needed. The planning board reserves the right to hire outside consultants and/or inspectors as necessary at the cost of the applicant. That's another standard condition should issues arise during construction. The special permit and site plan review is good for 3 years. The applicant is responsible for filing any other permits, such as the stormwater permit and sewer and water connection. And then, so specifically for prior to construction, the applicant will provide a complete construction schedule. The pre-construction meeting between town staff will be held. The applicant has offered to grant an easement to the town for the proposed Bewalt Trail as shown in the plans. Prior to the issuance of the building permit, shop drawings of all materials will be submitted to the DPW for review and approval. The applicant will provide the town an erosion and sediment control performance security in the form of cash in the amount of $5,000 for erosion control. So that would be returned to the applicant once the project is finished. During construction, we ask that a copy of the decision be kept on site in a visible location, just as a reminder of these conditions. Unobstructed road access with a width of no less than 20 feet shall be provided during construction for first responders to be able to traverse the construction site. Any work within the right-of-way is subject to the DPW rules and regulations. During construction, the site may not cause dust or debris to leave the premises, and then we always suggest keeping a water truck on site to wet down any dusty areas. The applicant shall perform a daily cleanup of construction debris. The applicant shall provide appropriate erosion control methods. We do have hours of construction as specified in our bylaw, which are limited to between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Sundays and holidays are no operation. All construction-related traffic shall exit the site onto Route 9, Turnpike Road. No parking of construction vehicles will be permitted on Park Street. For the environment and stormwater, the stormwater management plan will be submitted to the DPW for approval. The applicant will make any modifications to the site plan as necessary, as directed by the DPW. All stormwater and erosion control management must be checked at the end of each construction day. The owner and site contractor shall sign and submit stormwater permit requirements. For fire protection, all locked gates will require the installation of a rapid access key box. All fire hydrants shall be painted red. The lighting and noise section, the lighting needs to comply with the bylaw. Lighting mounted on the exterior of the building and pole-mounted features shall be installed with light shields to prevent light from spilling over the property line. The applicant shall construct the sidewalks and crosswalks as shown on the plans to facilitate pedestrian safety, both internal and external to the site. All sidewalks designs shall be submitted to the DPW for approval. The landscaping must be in compliance with the plans. Until the final certificate of occupancy is received, the applicant will be responsible for maintaining the landscaping and all plantings on the approved landscape plan. And if the landscaping does not survive, it needs to be replaced. They will provide adequate snow storage. And then for traffic mitigation.
Before you get to traffic mitigation, I'd like to ask if any board members have any comments on any of the standard conditions which have been set forth in the decision. All right, let's move on to traffic mitigation.
Okay, I'll read these.
Yeah.
So for traffic mitigation, the applicant shall cooperate with the town to petition MassDOT to widen the shoulder along Turnpike Road eastbound to allow for deceleration leading up to Park Street. To offset future costs to the town for improvement to that intersection, the applicant shall make a contribution to the cost of improvements. The applicant shall make the contribution to the town in the amount of $10,000. Said contribution shall be required prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. This condition is subject to the approval and funding by MassDOT and may be fulfilled, I missed that word again, may be completed as part of the Section 2 BWALT design, which runs on that section. If the funds for this project are not expended within 10 years, money will be reallocated for any pedestrian and traffic, I know you had asked about that, pedestrian and traffic improvements that will serve this development at the discretion of the planning board.
All right, are there any comments from board members on that? Christina?
I guess what if MassDOT says that this intersection doesn't warrant the off-ramp? Then we can't do it.
Then, yeah, they would be the final authority on that, but that would be,
Mark,
why
put your
we're
hand down. I'll call on you.
incorporating them into the
Right,
design.
the discussion. Okay.
Right.
Do we have concerns that they would not support that addition?
No, I wouldn't, I mean, in working on other projects with them, they would want to see those safety improvements. Yeah.
Do we think, so I know that the $10,000 could help with the plans, but do we think that this could be added to, for example, like the tip list or like a grant, like so that we're not paying substantial amounts of money for it as a town?
Oh, for the construction?
Yeah.
Well, for the construction under a TIP or Transportation Improvement Program, that is paid for by MassDOT. So we don't handle the construction cost. And with this area, the plan is to put this on the TIP.
Okay, so it would be, the plan would be to have them pay for it?
Right.
Okay. Okay, those are my questions.
All right, Mark?
Go ahead.
Okay, so we had previously stated that, I guess my question is, why can't we require a widening of the shoulder there or a deceleration lane?
We were advised by council that we cannot require mitigation on a road that we do not own.
Okay, so even though DOT said in their letter, no work within the state highway layout, any work within the state highway layout would need a permit from Mass DOT. This includes if the town requires you to implement intersection improvements at the intersection of Route 9, and that was from DOT and DOT engineers. So DOT would be okay with us requiring that, but council is telling us that we can't require that?
Right, we cannot legally require an applicant. We can do something as a project, but we cannot legally require the applicant to perform the mitigation on a road that we do not own. So that MassDOT's not giving a legal opinion here.
So I think also to that, they're saying intersection improvements. So if we required them to widen Park Street, and that widening of Park Street where it meets Route 9 has to go into the layout of Route 9, we would need to get permits from MassDOT to do that work, even though it's mostly on Park Street. So not necessarily a deceleration lane, that would then go onto Park Street. If we required changes on Park Street that connected to a state road, we would need permits from
So
MassDOT.
for example, if we were to ask for like a median between, like a triangle median so that cars turning
If
in.
that median were to encroach upon MassDOT layout, we would need a permit from MassDOT for that work.
So can we require that? I'm not, again, I don't know if that's a good idea from an engineering standpoint, so, all right, forget it, I get it now. Council's telling us we can't require improvements on Route 9 as part of a condition.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, so
I think the reason for that, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, I think the reason for that is if we require improvements on MassDOT-owned roadways and MassDOT doesn't issue the permit, they can't build the project. And so we have now put the control of the project out of the town's hands and out of the applicant's hands and in MassDOT's hands. And so you can't prevent an applicant from exercising their development rights based on a state agency not giving them a permit for off-site mitigation.
Okay.
John Pezio, do you have a comment on that, on this section, on number 40?
Yeah, the total amount, the contribution, does that, so that's for plans, right? How far does that cover?
Well, obviously, we would want a lot more, but we do have, we have applied for a grant through Mass Trails to finish the design on Section 2, which would include this area. And then we're also asking MassDOT to contribute funds as well. So with those funds, it would definitely bring us a lot closer to finishing the design work, or be able to fund the design work.
Excuse me, we are trying to discuss this, so I'd appreciate it if you need to have a conversation, if you step outside. John, do you have any comments on this section?
So I have a question, but not on this condition, so I'll hold my question for later, but I do want to ask a question at some point.
Number 41.
Okay. The planning board shall review the operation of the drive-through coffee shop 1 year after the commencement of business. As part of this review, the board shall consider any incidents reported to the police department related to traffic queuing past the entrance of the parcel associated with the drive-through operation. If the board determines that significant issues have arisen, the applicant shall be required to propose and implement an appropriate mitigation plan subject to approval by the board.
Are there any comments from the board on this paragraph? Condition number 41.
Could I just, no, that's fine, go ahead.
I actually have one question here. I don't know if we know this, but what's the anticipated duration, like what's the construction time? Do we know? Can I ask that here? So like, how long are we anticipating? Assuming this is approved, do we have a rough anticipated date? It's like 2026?
I would say it'd be several months before we'd start, and then, best case scenario, a year from now, but that's...
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. Thanks.
All right, that's the end of the traffic section. Are there any comments from the board on anything else? We've gone through paragraphs paragraphs 40 and 41. We'll move on to paragraph.
Sorry, one thought.
Sure.
I wonder, from a timing standpoint, what the construction would look like compared to the, like deceleration lane. I don't know, that might actually, since those conversations are already, I don't know what the duration of time would be to do that.
They most likely would not get into construction if we get on the tip, which
Yeah, then it would
we'll
be
talking
multiple
about.
years, right?
It'll be a few years before
Okay.
we get on there
Okay,
for construction to start.
okay, thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm just curious, if the requirement, the applicant shall be required to propose and implement an appropriate mitigation plan subject to approval by the board. So if we don't approve that, let's say this turns into a mess, and there's a really expensive fix or whatever the applicant proposes to mitigate the mess that this may or may not turn into, and we don't approve that mitigation proposal because we don't feel it's adequate, what would our recourse be to enforce this? Would we like withdraw, like rescind the special permit? Would we withdraw the occupancy permit? I don't even think that's possible.
You wouldn't be able to withdraw the occupancy permit, but you could ask for, if you found that there was a significant safety concern with the drive-through component, then you could ask for that component to be stopped until the issue was remedied.
Okay,
So just shut down the drive-through.
just shut down the drive-through. Okay.
Yes, because technically it would be out of compliance with this decision. So if you found, I mean, you would of course have to have findings because that's a pretty serious thing to do. But if you found that there was a significant safety issue that was about the drive-through.
Right, so I'm not sure if this question is for the applicant or just a hypothetical. So if the tenant has a requirement that a drive-through be a component, and we have to shut that down, and the tenant withdraws, do we just end up with an empty building until they get another tenant?
I'm not sure what you mean, like if they just
I'm
left.
saying if something happens, we shut down the drive-through, and all of a sudden the tenant says, well, we're moving out. That's what you're,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I guess it's a possibility, but probably not.
Then you're just going to have a vacant building. Exactly, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You want me to-
Can I make a quick comment on that?
I was just, one second. From my experience, the tenant's tied to the lease. The tenant will operate there. The drive-through is a portion of the business. The tenant will still operate there and mitigate whatever they need to, but.
I just want to say that your concern is actually what my concern was when I read this, and that is that I'm not overly in love with the open-endedness of that sentence. I had a conversation with Jenny, and, we sort of agreed that we would do what we could if there was such a problem, when we don't anticipate that. But personally, I'm with you. I don't like that it's so open-ended. I think it should have some sort of a, whether it be that what those mitigation criteria may be or something, if that was the case. But likely the tenant probably could leave if the town were to shut down the drive-through. I don't remember honestly what exactly the very long lease says regarding that, so they probably would.
Okay, so again, the open-endedness of it is a double-edged sword. Should we put some type of figure in there that it sets expectations for both sides?
No, I think we ought to accept the open-endedness. I would not want to put a
How
figure
would you
in there.
determine, like,
You
what would
can't
the-
figure.
what would the figure be?
You can't determine it.
I don't know. I would probably ask engineering for a recommendation. Or,
I don't think there's
maybe
any-
Jenny has an idea what.
Yeah, I don't even know.
We don't even know we don't even know if there's going to be a problem yet, but if there is a problem, I think it is beneficial to both sides to know that the applicant might have to spend up to a certain amount.
Yes, but Mark,
And
the thing is with the open-endedness, the way this is written, as far as I can see it, as you said, the final remedy would be to shut down we're specifically talking about the drive-through. So that would be the only thing that would probably be causing any of the problems that we have, or that you projected that we may occur because of this. You have the option to shut it down, and then
Okay.
as far as the mitigation goes, then it's, the applicant will have to take the appropriate ones, whether he's going to have to shut his business down or how it's going to work.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just leave it open-ended.
So I would leave it open-ended.
Do you want me to move on to the next condition? Okay.
Are we ready? All right. Condition 44.
All directional pavement markings and business signage for the coffee shop shall be installed in the location specified on the site plans. It is understood that the existing multi-tenant standing sign shall be modified as specified on sheet 3.02 of the site plan set referenced in this decision document. All business signage shall require a building permit prior to installation. Any questions on that?
Comments? All right.
And then the last ones are standard, that we ask for at least 14 days before you request your certificate of occupancy, that you contact the planning office to schedule a site visit so I can look whether it's in conformance with the plan. And then we ask for at least 2 weeks to review the final as-built plans before we issue the certificate of occupancy. That's the last one.
So we've been through this. Are we ready to put a motion on the floor?
No, I had a question
Oh,
through the
sorry,
chair. And this goes back to the special permit decision criteria. And so this is I'm going to ask the applicant, Jenny, I'm assuming that's okay, even though the public hearing's been closed, to ask the applicant a question.
Yeah.
What are the estimated number of trips for a coffee shop versus a coffee shop with a drive-through?
It's the same. The ITE, excuse me, so apologies.
Could you speak into the microphone, though? Thank you.
Sorry. So the ITE trip generation, it has specific uses. This use is land use 937, which is coffee shop with a drive-through. I don't, at the top of my head, have the trip generation for just a coffee shop without a drive-through. I would assume, based on my kind of experience in this, that it would be slightly less, but it likely is based off square footage. So if the drive-through, let's say, were to be eliminated and the building were to be larger, you could theoretically fit a similar size building on this lot that would produce the similar trips, if that's kind of what you're getting at.
Well, what I'm getting at is, if I am an appeals court, I'm going to look at the by right use and the trips generated by the by right use, which is coffee shop. And then the special permit is only going to apply to the difference between the trips generated by a coffee shop with a drive-through versus a regular coffee shop. And if that difference and those trips are going to cause substantial harm to the neighborhood.
I would disagree with the fact that it's close to the same. It wouldn't be. The drive-through, you'd have a much different clientele going there if you can't go through the drive-through.
I understand the sentiment and I understand the anecdotal knowledge and experience, but we can't deal in those numbers. We have to deal in industry standards, and those ITE numbers are the industry standards.
Then I feel like, since this is kind of the crux of it, then we need that number then.
I can't have an answer of slight increase.
I'm not saying you have to accept that. I'm just saying, breaking it down to the parts, right? It's going to come down to, what is the difference between the trips generated by a drive-through versus a coffee shop?
Yes.
Because that is what the special permit is really going to be
Yes.
decided on. And if the board thinks that that difference is going to create the unsafe condition rather than just the trips generated by a coffee shop, is what I think it needs to be decided on.
I think that's the point I've been making the whole time, Jim.
I have not heard you make that point. I
Okay, well,
apologize.
that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't have a problem with the restaurant use. It's the drive-through. It's going to generate way more trips than a coffee shop than without a drive-through.
I mean, if that's the point we're trying to make this whole time, then how come we haven't asked that question?
Well, maybe I didn't put it as bluntly as I should have, but
But how have we not asked the question of what's the difference between a coffee shop use and a coffee shop with a drive-through use?
Is that information available?
Yeah, if you give me a moment, I could.
Industry watchdogs. Excuse me. I'm not taking comments from the audience. We've closed the public hearing. Mr. Montfort?
I need to log into the IT trip generation.
And I apologize for not bringing this up earlier. As I'm looking at the decision criteria, it's making the wheels turn.
Is that information we need to go back to the traffic consultants and get an answer on before we make a decision?
I mean, the ITE information is set up in tables, if I remember correctly. So it's really based off of, to the engineer's point, square footage. And so it should be
Available
enough to
available.
discuss here, but if we want to have a peer review consultant look at those numbers, I don't know if it would change anything, but.
I mean, could Starbucks provide something? I mean, like.
But it wouldn't be Starbucks, it would be the ITE, which is a standalone.
I understand that.
Just a second, Mark.
I understand that, but I think we're going on, like, it's not square footage if you're talking about an industry that's driven by speed, right? It's not about square footage or adding more square footage if we take away the drive-through. It's about, you're on Route 9 and you're going into Boston, and do you want to go through a drive-through or do you want to stop and get out of your car? So I would be curious to get actual Starbucks numbers, like drive-through, non-drive-through, for a freestanding location. Because to me, that is the crux of it. That's why the traffic will be so much higher, is because of the speed and convenience of a drive-through, not because there's a Starbucks.
I understand that, right? My understanding is that information, those ITE numbers, factor that stuff in.
Because we can't just get Starbucks numbers, because Starbucks might not be there forever.
Well, can I just point out that I Googled this, and it says, according to the ITE trip generation manual, a coffee shop with a drive-through will generate significantly more vehicle trips. It doesn't give me a number in this answer, but than a standard coffee shop without a drive-through. So we have slightly from the applicant, and we have significant.
But that's not actually giving any numbers, so it's
No, I
just
know.
as
I want to
useless
hear
as
the
slightly.
answer once Sam gets it.
I have it. So I did the weekday AM peak hour generator, which is what we've utilized. So land use 937, which is coffee/donut shop with a drive-through. The average rate is 101.27 vehicles per hour, I believe. And that's with a drive-through. So land use 936, which is coffee donut shop without a drive-through, weekday AM peak hour, the average rate is 96.43. So according to this information, I quickly pulled this up, but it appears there's like a 5 vehicle per hour difference based on this information. Obviously, I'm having a chance to review all of this, but that's.
And just so everyone's clear, where are you getting the numbers from?
The Institute, Transportation Engineers, IT, TripGen, web-based app. It's a subscription based app for empirical data on traffic and trip generation that's widely used and accepted in traffic studies and evaluations.
I wouldn't call that significant. I'd say that sounds pretty close to what a drive-through would be.
If those are the figures, I mean, if we've got 101 compared to 96, obviously it doesn't
And that-
seem to be a significant.
I should add those rates, the 101 and 96 is per 1,000 square feet. So I suppose with a 2,400, it'd be more, it's more, less of a 5 vehicle difference and more of like a 14 or 15 vehicle difference in total trips. Yeah.
So boiling that down, I mean, that's our decision is if we're going to accept these numbers as accurate, the 15 trips is what our special permit is going to be based on. Because that's what an appeals court is going to look at.
I mean, we have
think
a
we
couple of
covered it.
options.
I don't know what else I need
Yeah.
to say.
No, there's not, I think it's, if we don't approve the special permit, it will come back to us. It will get approved in land court. It's just, it's not a significant difference. The trips.
I don't know. I hear you,
The data's the data's. the
but
data.
but it's by square foot. It's not by, that doesn't make sense for that sort of location. It doesn't.
The data's the data. If they build a bigger square footage, a bigger building, it'll generate more trips. And if they get rid of a drive-through, they could build a larger building on the site. Because they have plenty of parking. They have more parking than they need.
Yeah.
So technically, Starbucks could say, get rid of our drive-through, we'll do a bigger building and generate more trips than what a drive-through would have, based upon the data. I mean, we can only go off of what's facts.
I agree.
And-
I
and
hear
we-
you.
and
Yeah.
I know it's a.
But these are general, yes, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I know it's a tough thing. It's emotional. There's obviously a lot of people that are opposed to this, but the facts are the facts. And that's all. If we turn this down and it goes to land court, they will just look at the facts, not anything other than that. And the project will eventually get approved.
So is there any, I guess, I don't know, is there anything else that we're not, how can we be more specific to the area versus a table of just general numbers? But
That is the only way that we can base our information on is
Right.
what the professionals have given us, specific information. And that is the reason that
Yeah.
this is a very difficult decision. I know the neighborhood. I've driven back and forth. I've been thinking about it. But at the same time, I know that any decision by the board, or me as a board member, should be based upon the information
Facts, yeah.
which I have received
Yes.
from the professionals. And that's the reason that I feel that I agree with both Johns that if this went to an appeal court, that we would lose, because I think that there has not been shown the information that is not the criteria. We have met the criteria for a special permit.
Yeah, I guess at the same time, I've been in parking lots, including the other Starbucks, and it's tough traffic. And that was peer reviewed, and that was, put through all of the appropriate measures. And that's a tough parking lot.
Yeah.
And I know that there was a lot of thought and redesign and reconfiguration of that when that was happening, but it went through all the proper things and it's still difficult. So I guess that also makes it difficult.
Well, we can't always say the planning board is right, but the planning board tries to be right.
Yes.
And we then make an effort to mitigate whatever problems occur, if they occur later on. We do try
Right.
to do that, but you can't always take into consideration all the facts. You never know how these things are going to work out.
Right.
I would also say there's the condition on this decision that the applicant doesn't like, and I'd say Mark doesn't like,
Yeah.
leaves it open-ended that if we find or whatever find it's not working out for a safety concern, there's a way to shut down the drive-through.
Yeah.
But we can't say that that's going to happen. It could be, very well could be safe.
Yeah.
You just,
Yeah, I guess it's the nuisance piece also, that's difficult.
but it's not causing harm. It's not causing harm to anybody. It's not a safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the bylaw is written that if there's an unusual circumstance specific to this site, that other uses, other similar uses in the same district do not have, right? And this site is definitely unique in that the only in and out is on a side street, right? Every other drive-through on Route 9 has two egresses. Even the one that John's talking about, the main egress from Taco Bell, is directly onto Route 9. It's not onto a side street. So I don't understand why that alone doesn't give us the right under special permit granting authority to make a decision that this unique set of circumstances will create congestion, nuisance, and hazard.
That causes a harm or is a major safety concern. There's that part too.
But we had a traffic engineer peer review that recommended widening the shoulder. And the only solution for that they suggested was, well, if we don't widen the shoulder, even though I think the peer reviewer said, I think it will cause rear end and side swipe collisions. If we don't require that shoulder widening, then we should take a monetary contribution. Well, how does that make anything safer? It doesn't. Or we should do a look back. How does that make anything safer? Are we going to wait? I mean, the peer reviewer specifically said that if the shoulder, that they were concerned about safety.
But we're not saying we're not going to try to do any of that. We just can't make this conditioned upon them getting an approval from Mass DOT.
Right, but it's still a specific set of circumstances specific to this site.
Remind me why we can't have an off-ramp, like go right from Route 9, was that because of conservation?
No, it was probably
We can't get,
because it was too expensive.
approval from DOT to do that.
I'm sorry?
We'd have to get approval from DOT to do that.
Okay.
You'd have to get a highway access permit.
Yeah, right. All right, I think we've, I don't know if there's anything else that people would like to raise at this particular time.
Yeah,
John?
the only other thing I wanted to just address, and
Yeah.
it's pushing back on your assertion, Chris, that a drive-through, the speed, I think with the way that things are done now, people go in and do mobile orders and park, grab their stuff, and then leave. And so I don't think it's unrealistic to think that a lot of people would also do that. Coming off of Route 9, I'm not going to wait in that drive-through lane. There's 8 cars in it. I'm not going to sit in that line. I'm going to do a mobile order, go and pick it up, and then leave. So I don't know if that,
True.
if the
Yep.
drive-through versus the mobile ordering pickup is really going to shift that much in terms of trips. Because
Fair.
Dunkin' their drive-through is usually packed and their parking lot is usually packed, but there's a lot of turnover in that parking lot.
All right, are we ready to have a motion?
So do we, through the chair, do we want to vote on the findings separately? And then on the approval? Or do we want to vote on them together?
I think let's vote them together. Yes.
Does Jenny have any comments? She hasn't really had any. I just wanted to, did you have any comments? Anything?
I really don't have anything additional to add.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
Jenny, should we vote on the findings separately from the approvals?
I mean, I think that's really up to the board if you want to vote on the individual findings, or if you want to just take a vote.
I think the findings are the findings, and so my inclination would be to vote on the entire thing. What do you think, Joe?
So the reason I say separate them
Yeah.
is because to vote on the findings means that the board accepts all of those as factual and accurate.
Okay.
And then in doing so, we can then, if there's an
Move
issue.
forward from
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
To approve, all right. So that would be number 10 through 17. Are the findings of fact?
Yes, so I can make the motion if you'd like.
Yeah.
So I move that the planning board accept and approve the findings of fact as listed in the draft decision.
Are there any more comments?
Can you start with John, please?
I'm sorry,
You start on the other end as we go down.
for a vote?
Yes.
Oh, sure. Right, it's up to Hazel.
Oh, I was just going to, were there any comments on the motion? All right. All in favor? Opposed?
Well, I don't think you need a 2/3 majority for the findings, just on the special permit
Right, you
itself.
just need, a majority. So we'll move on.
So I guess at this point, do we want to talk about the findings, or are we pretty set in stone?
My feeling is the findings were approved by the majority of the board, and we'll move on to the decision. Could I have a motion?
So I'm just confused. Number 18 on the findings, right? That's the one I'm really voting against, but it seems to be worded differently than what the bylaw requires as a result of the findings listed above. Should it be reworded to the board finds, whatever, I'm still going to vote against it, so I don't know. I just whatever. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think number 18 should have been worded like number 7.
Okay.
And I
I thought
don't
they
even
were
think it's 18
similar.
anymore, it's probably 17 now. Number 7 says, that under the bylaw, should we have a finding of fact that it does not, that there's nothing peculiar to this particular case, but not generally true for similar permitted uses on the other sites in the same district? Why aren't we using the same wording for that finding of fact? Because that's significant, the two.
I can change it if that's what the board.
Well, I would like it that way. I don't know if everybody feels that way, but.
Mark,
I
what's
mean,
your suggestion?
My suggestion is that number 18, really the reason I'm voting against this is the way number 7 is worded. But when you look at number 18, it's not worded the same way. Well, it's 18 on our red line copy, but I think it's going to end up being 17 because 14 was struck. But so as a result of the findings listed above, I think the board should find, and specifically, if we're all comfortable saying that there are no conditions peculiar to the particular case, but not generally true for similar permitted uses on other sites in the same district, it appears that the nuisance, hazard, or congestion will not be created, or for other reasons it will be substantial. I think if the board is comfortable with a finding of fact that there's nothing about this particular site that, again, I think the way the bylaw is written is the language you should use in the finding of fact.
I mean, I can tell you why it's written that way. It's because under the bylaw, you're saying the special permit shall be granted unless, because of those conditions you just stated, there will be substantial harm to the neighborhood. So you're finding that the finding states that you're finding that there will not be substantial harm to the neighborhood, but it's by default because of those conditions, because that's what you're making your decision on, that you're finding substantial harm because of those.
But I've heard a concern that we should vote for this because we might get sued. Well, I think we might get sued either way, but that's beside the point. The point is, right, if we want our findings of fact, right, and if this doesn't pass, which I hope it doesn't, if we want our findings of fact to be that there is specific circumstances on this site that create hazard, nuisance, and congestion, et cetera, right? Not just a kind of a abbreviated version of that. Is that going to give us better standing if this ends up in appeals court?
You need to find that it does not meet that criteria based on the facts that have been presented in the application. So the traffic studies, the traffic data, what the
Well, the
site
motion
plans
is to
show.
pass this, not to find, right? So
Right, but you're making that finding that it's not anticipated to create this substantial harm based on those facts.
So, and just to clarify, Mark, it's not that this will get appealed and we'll lose. What happens when we lose is that the court then directs us to approve the permit. So we would deny it, get sued, potentially lose the appeal, and still have it built.
No, I get that. Okay. But what I'm saying is that I think that if I vote against this because of number 7, the way number 7 is worded, right?
So first of all, we're not.
7 is not a finding of fact.
Right.
7 is a general fact.
Yes.
And I think it should be in our findings of fact that whoever wants to vote for this is finding that there's no hazard nuisance, et cetera, that language.
That's what 18 says.
No,
Yes.
it doesn't say that.
So you can, so the crux of 7 is that there will be substantial harm to the neighborhood. So in 18, you're finding that the proposed project does not create substantial harm to the neighborhood. If you are trying to find that it does create substantial harm to the neighborhood, it's those factors, the congestion, nuisance, et cetera,
right.
that create that substantial harm.
It's fine, I'm not
So
an attorney, I don't want to interpret that.
if you don't have those issues, then a finding that it will not create substantial harm satisfies the requirement of the
It's
special
fine,
permit.
it references the bylaw, and, I'm voting against this because of the way the bylaw is written, so, all right, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, hold on, I'm confused
I'm
with that
voting
last
against this
statement.
because I think 18 and 7, neither standards have been met.
Neither, I'm sorry, what?
Neither standard has been met, because I do think there'll be harm to the neighborhood. And I do think there'll be hazard and nuisance and congestion and, for all the things I've talked about. So I'm beating a dead horse. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I see why he's voting against it.
Did that just confuse you even more?
Yeah.
Chris?
No, that's why I disagreed with the findings also, is because I think that it's a harm to the neighborhood. But I understand that we're supposed to be voting on findings, on the facts for the permit.
Want to put a motion on the,
Sure. I want to make sure I say this correctly.
It's on the back page.
In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9, and Sections 2.3, 3.1, 3.5, and Section 5.1 Table of Uses of the Westborough zoning bylaw, I move that the planning board grant the special permit and site plan review to allow a drive-through restaurant use in the Highway Business BA zoning district at 210 Turnpike Road, subject to the following conditions as previously read by the planner, director of planning.
Second.
you ready to vote? All in favor? Opposed? The special permit is denied.
Review too, right?
I'm sorry?
The plan review as well.
For the site plan.
All right.
All right, so
It was,
do we?
sorry,
We've already closed the public hearing. Do we need to move to close anything else? Sorry,
yeah,
Jen.
you already closed it, but I think
closed
the
the
applicant
public
was
hearing.
questioning,
Yeah.
because the vote was on the special permit and site plan review, they took the motion in one. If you,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we could do it without the traffic.
Well, they just denied the whole.
Would you like us to reconsider the vote and vote on the permit separately?
I think that's the appropriate vote, because it's two separate permits
fine.
for a site plan and then a special permit, but it's you guys' decision.
So the only thing with that is that, I mean, your site plan shows the drive-through as being part of it.
So you'd have to provide us with a revised site plan if you want us to just vote on the site plan.
Okay.
Well, actually,
Is that
I don't know.
correct?
So theoretically, special permit needs 2/3 majority, site plan needs simple majority.
Right.
So you could approve the site plan with the drive-through, you just wouldn't be able to build the drive-through because you don't have the special permit.
True.
Sense to me.
I would
So you have an approved
agree
site
with
plan, but
that.
no special permit to allow for that use, if we reconsider the vote on the two permits. So I'll move that we reconsider the vote on the two permits.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, so assuming the votes for the findings still holds, in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9, I move that the planning board grant the special permit to allow a drive-through restaurant use in the Highway Business BA zoning district at 210 Turnpike Road, subject to the conditions.
Sorry, don't you have to do the other one first?
Sorry?
Don't you have to do, no, you don't have to do the other one first? Okay, I apologize. I thought you had to switch the order.
Of site
No,
plan and
you do the
special permit?
special
Yeah.
permit.
No.
Okay, sorry, I apologize.
To the conditions as previously discussed.
Is there a second? All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry, this is
This
for the
is
special
special
permit.
permit.
Okay.
Special permit is denied.
All right. You want to take an opposition vote? You weren't here last week, but Mark corrected me on that.
No, I'm opposed.
All right, opposed?
To the special permit, yes.
All right, in accordance with sections 2.3, 3.1, 3.5, and section 5.1 table of uses of the Westborough zoning bylaw, I move that the planning board grant the site plan review approval to allow a drive-through restaurant in the highway, or to allow the proposed site plan,
Yeah.
or to allow the submitted site plan as depicted on the submitted plans in the Highway Business BA zoning district at 210 Turnpike Road, subject to the conditions as previously discussed.
Did you say for use as a restaurant?
Can we discuss
I
that?
did not, because it's a site plan, not the
Oh,
use.
just a site plan,
The-
all right.
The use,
But do you need to add a condition about the drive-through portion not being constructed, or?
Sorry?
The drive-through portion not being constructed? Oh, okay.
No, I think if you denied the special permit, then it's not used, the restaurant is just a site plan.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how we can vote. I mean, if the use is by right, I'm just not even sure how we can vote when the site plan, everything we've looked at, every document we've considered shows a drive-through, the traffic circulation is a drive-through, the parking is based on a drive-through, like, how is, I feel like we would have to reconsider the shape of the building, the traffic.
no, not
flow.
necessarily, because the special permit is just for the use, right? And so the site plan is for the design of the site, and that requires a simple majority. So if 3 of the 5 vote for the site plan, that can be approved. They just can't build the drive-through, or they can't use the
They can't
drive-through.
make it. The
until
use
that
as a-
special
as a
permit is granted.
drive-through. That's right. But they can build the restaurant. And it can have, built the way it is, but it just means they cannot have the drive-through as a drive-through.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have the right to build a restaurant there under zoning. So it's just,
we're just
it just feels really weird to me that I'm.
Yeah, it is
I'm
weird.
voting.
It's an odd way to, normally that's not the way something's done, but the fact that the decision was to reconsider and put 2 motions forward, one for the site plan and the second for the use, which is the special permit. The special permit was turned down, but we approved the site plan, which means they can go ahead and build the building as it's presented to us. They can always come back and reorganize the building. I mean, if they wish, that would be possible as far as the site plan goes. They have an option to do that, make it a larger restaurant.
So let me ask you this, if we approve the site plan and they build a building as, on that footprint.
Right.
And they come back in 3 months, like, how long is this, done on? 2 years?
Yeah, they also have the option of building the building, and they
just
have an
letting us-
option of coming back at another time and asking, how long, is there a time period in which you have been turned down for a special permit and you can come back and ask for it again?
It's 2 years unless the planning board finds that the plans are substantially different, and then they can reconsider. So you would have to take a vote on whether to reconsider the special permit within the 2 years.
Yeah, so they could theoretically build the site
That's right.
as designed, drive-through and everything. But if our zoning enforcement officer were to go there and see people using the drive-through as a drive-through, that would be a violation of our zoning because they don't have a special permit for
I
it.
mean, hypothetically, right, you could build it, but if it's open without a drive-through and we see that the traffic isn't hugely negatively impacted, and then that would be appropriate to come back and
Could
say.
come back.
Only after 2 years because the site plan hasn't changed significantly.
It would be 2 years, though, because if it's not going to be built for over a
Possibly.
year. Yeah, right. But I'm just saying 2 years from now.
There is that option.
So the motion and
Second.
second is on the table, I think.
All
right?
right, there's a motion on the table for the site plan.
Second.
Second. All in favor of approving the site plan?
It just, but without,
Without?
yeah, yes.
We're not
yes,
saying
site plan.
without, we're approving the
I think
site
we-
plan
I
as
think-
presented.
I mean,
All right, is anyone
Well, that's-
opposed? Any vote? All right, so it's 5-0 to approve the site plan. So we've not approved the special permit, we've approved the site plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
No, it is a weird result because usually it doesn't get split. But also,
Well, I don't think we have grounds to deny the site plan.
no, but also I don't think we should be making votes on 2 separate permits with different voting thresholds either. Because like theoretically, that site plan got denied, but still had a majority, which is the threshold, voting
No,
threshold.
I think
for site
that's a
plans.
good point, right? I mean, the site plan only requires majority.
All right, let's see, we have minutes, I think. The next thing on the agenda, we haven't done, is that correct? Lost my agenda.
Updates from board and committees.
Lost my agenda too. Maybe I never had one.
No, we all had one, I misplaced one.
Pass my agenda down to them.
We did, Hazel right here.
Minutes for John,
What is this for?
Sorry, minutes, so we have minutes of February 25th. Has everyone had a chance to look at those minutes?
Yes.
yeah.
Are there any corrections or comments, questions?
Hazel didn't have her copy, I was giving it to her.
Oh, the agenda.
no question.
No, she's
Yeah,
got it.
we found one.
Okay.
Mark, any questions or comments on the minutes of
No,
February
no
25th?
questions or comments.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 25th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? That's 5-0.
Okay, are there any reports from board members on town committees that have attended?
Yes, so we are nearly done with the Community Preservation Committee plan. We had it reviewed by a third party, essentially, and have some edits, but hope to have that done soon.
Anyone else? Or is there anything anyone would like to bring before the board? If not, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Eric, did this need to be signed
Yeah, just sign it.
by me?
Yeah.